already joined. So let us start, sir.
Good afternoon, Professor Maitra.
Good afternoon.
But the quality of the internet is today very poor, so I'm not
very
able to
very
put
poor
the,
because heavy
video
rainfall.
on.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
heavy.
able to put the video on.
Right. Here also heavy rainfall is happening for the last 2 days, and therefore I am also not getting proper sound. Without this earphone connection, I cannot listen to you because the sound quality is so poor, and my voice quality is also poor, probably to your side, at your side.
Yes, that's right. Let's see, it can work for me because I'm just, I'm losing the audio of viewers also. Yeah.
Right.
So let us start, sir.
Yeah, you start. This is the problem with digital system.
Welcome and good afternoon to everybody. I am Dr. Devashish Giri, Associate Professor in the Department of Information Technology of Maulana Abul Kalam Azad University of Technology, West Bengal. Today is the session 3 of the webinar series on cryptography, network security, and cyber security. The event is organized by the MAKAUT West Bengal in association with the Islamic University of Science and Technology, Jammu and Kashmir. Now, in our inauguration session, we are having our Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor Soitad Maitra, Vice Chancellor of Maulana Abul Kalam Azad University of Technology, West Bengal, and Professor Mustaq Siddiqui, Vice Chancellor, Islamic University of Science and Technology, and we are having 3 eminent speakers, Professor Sebetla Likova from Belgium, and Professor Sougata Gangobadhyay from IIT Roorkee, and Professor Dipanita Rai Choudhury from IIT Kharagpur. Now, on behalf of our university, I request to our Honorable Vice Chancellor to address the gathering, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Giri. It's great to be amongst you, particularly when my good friend Professor Siddiqui is present, and of the late, of course, we have started this webinar culture after this pandemic. Things happened in the month of March. We started this webinar culture, but lately we have taken the initiative in engaging Islamic University of Science and Technology. It should have been earlier, but still better late than never. And there's a nice thing that Professor Siddiqui and perhaps many of the faculties from Islamic University of Science and Technology, they have joined to this webinar. And here, Dr. Giri, you have taken a tremendous initiative in inviting many experts from different fields, particularly premier institutes of India as well as from abroad, for sharing their views, for sharing their knowledges, ideas, and wisdom for the benefits of all our participants. Today, I can say the name Professor Sougata Ganguly, Professor Dipanita Rai Choudhury, perhaps, and Professor Vetla Nikova from Belgium. There's a nice combination. And the topic is very important as the series on this the network security and internet security, cyber security, data security is going on. Probably it is the 4th lecture in this series. And here I have this information that it has created lots of this interest and enthusiasm among our participants. And this particular this fact is this Professor Siddiqui, he will be sharing his views in a more this egalitarian way than me. But what I can say that it's a subject of utmost importance, particularly at this time when every facets and every part of our activity is depending on the digital platform. Be it our these continuations of these lectures or educations or financial transactions, everything. Today I can say this lockdown is there at Calcutta for the last yesterday and today. So whatever is right now from my wife, she was booking order through Amazon. She was telling me that she would like to purchase something. So I told her how it can happen because all the shops nearby are closed. So we don't know. I will use smartphone and order to Amazon only. So you see, this is the culture. So every one of us now depending to these online service providers, digital platforms, then to the maximum level right now for our all requirement, for our own survival, be it medicine, be it all commodities. This is okay. This financial transaction is, but the thing is, here one thing we have to be very, very careful, and because today itself I have received so many emails and messages regarding these advisories from banks. Don't never divulge your these passwords and all these things to any party. The state bank never wants this identity disclosure of their customers and all these things. You see, this has been happening for each and every citizen of this country, because we are all of us now having the maximum threat of all this from all these quarters. And we even I have seen persons with education also, they are being cheated, they are being the victim of cyber frauds and cyber crimes. So this is one of the area where we need to develop a large number of cyber warriors who can protect, safeguards our all interests, who can make ourselves safe, who can those who can support all our activities in a foolproof manners. And therefore, of this late, we from the university we have initiated programs on cybersecurity in association with different professional organizations like CDAC Center, this for Government of India. Then there is another group with whom we have this strategic partnership, the Chatterjee Group. We are going to have this collaboration with many other professional organizations for giving our students real life knowledge and experiences, and for real life case studies, for exposing them to more and more this hands-on training. And for this this webinar is one of the right now one of the only media for getting them making them more aware of all these things. And I'm hopeful that in near future, through all these activities, numbers of students, numbers of researchers, they will emerge out of with adequate knowledge and skill to protect the safeguards of this interest of this country in the digital format. And with this, I would like to conclude, and I would like to convey my best wishes to all the participants. And I'd like to congratulate Dr. Giri for organizing this webinar. My sincerest thanks to all these resource persons, Professor Sugata, Professor Dipannita, and Professor Vetla for giving their kind consent to remain present over here and for sharing their knowledge and expertise. And of course, Professor Siddiqui is here. And I'd like to request Dr. Giri to take it forward this session without this because this should be a productive utilization of time for all our participants, listening to the experts as long as possible. Thank you.
So thank you for your view, sir. Now I request to our Professor Mustaq Siddiqui, sir. He is the Vice Chancellor of Islamic University of Science and Technology. I request you to share your view to the audience.
Thank you, Dr. Giri, for inviting me on this platform. I'm really amused to see every day an activity from the MAKAUT, and especially under the leadership of Professor Moitra. I'm really happy to know that the cybersecurity, which has become a real issue under the present circumstances, because most of the work is being done on the online platform. So therefore, how relevant it is, the cybersecurity and cryptography and all those things. So I will be only looking forward to listening to the technical lectures by the experts, since I'm not an expert in the field. So therefore, I will leave it to the expert lectures to deliver their talks. My best wishes for this seminar, and I hope that the participants who will be participating in this webinar, they will be big beneficiaries of the lectures that will be delivered on this platform. We are conscious as common citizen of the world. I'm conscious of the fact that how important it is to have these cybersecurity systems in place. We need to have a robust system so that my money is safe, my privacy is safe, my everything is safe, because now it is in the public domain, or rather not public domain, but it is on an online platform. So therefore, I will be always concerned with the security of my information that I am putting on the online platform. So my best wishes for the professionals who are working in this field to make our lives more comfortable. So I'm looking forward to listening to the lectures by the experts. Thank you, Dr. Giri. Thank you, Professor Moitra, for having me invited on this platform. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your valuable speech, sir. Now our first speaker is Professor Elta Nikova, KU Leuven, Belgium. She is a research expert at the research group POSIC in the Electronic Engineering Department of KU Leuven, Belgium. Her research area are cryptography and coding theory. Under cryptography, she is interested on side channel resistant implementations, lightweight cryptography, and so on. And in coding theory, she is interested on read Muller codes and design in polynomial metric space, and so on. Now today's her talk is on threshold cryptography against combined physical attack. Now we request to Professor Nikova to share your slides and start your presentation.
Do you see my slides?
Yeah, it is visible.
Okay.
It is visible. Nikova.
Okay. Do you hear me?
Thank you, Nikova. Start.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I can start then. Thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you very much for inviting me into this webinar. This is really a very good, very important initiative from your side, because unfortunately in these times, students and PhD students and postdocs are left most of the time alone at home and have to work on their own. And it's very important to have also interaction with other people and to learn about research that has been done in another group, and to not lose the connection with what is happening. So this is really a very good initiative, and I'm very honored to be also invited. So I will talk, the title of this webinar is about network security. I guess it's more broad than this, but I'm not going to talk about network security. I'm going to talk, as Dr. Giri said, I'm a cryptographer. So I'm going to talk about threshold cryptography applied to protect against combined attacks. Actually, I will, my talk will be in the area of protecting hardware implementations against physical attacks. So we don't talk about, the application is not in the network setting, but it's more into small devices setting, like all your smart cards, mobile phones, and every small device, all the gadgets that we carry around with us, which are very easy to be accessed by an attacker. And what can attackers do to steal your secret information from those devices, and how can we protect against such an attacker? The work that I will talk about, it's a combination, a collection of several papers that we have been written the last couple of years, and it's a joint work with some of the colleagues and students in my group in COSIC from KU Leuven, and also colleagues from NXP. Maybe I can say a few words about my research group. It's a quite big and well-established research group in cryptography and computer security, led by Professor Bart Prenell, has been there for 40 years already. And now we have about 100 people, members of the group, working in all kinds of different aspects of cryptography, security, hardware security, privacy, also in different sort of applications like identity cards, applications, password application, I mean, changing, replacing the password with other means of authentication, biometrics, and all kind of other, basically covering the full spectrum, blockchain also lately. I'm working in the group, I'm closely working with Professor Vincent Ryman. We have a small group, not very small anymore, about 10 students and postdocs working on threshold implementation, which is a technique that we introduced about 10 years ago, and I'll talk about it later. But we also work in symmetric cryptography, cryptanalysis of symmetric primitives, design of symmetric primitives, on different projects on European level, on Belgian level, and so on. So let's start with the with the technical part of the presentation. I wasn't sure what exactly is the level of the audience and how much people are aware of cryptographic cryptography at all. So I'll start a little bit slowly and from the beginning, but I'll try also not to be going too much into details so that people still can follow. So as everybody probably knows, we consider different settings in cryptography, and one of the most popular is the black box setting, when we have an algorithm, cryptographic primitive, with input and output, plain text and ciphertext, and the adversary and a key. And the adversary's aim is to recover this key, which is the only secret information, basically, because normally the algorithm based on the Kerckhoff principle is public. So in the black box setting, the adversary is allowed to observe the plain text and the ciphertext, but he cannot mess up with the black box. So he cannot look into the computations and everything else. So he can find the key. He's supposed to find the key only by observing the plain text and the ciphertext. While in the gray box setting, which is where actually my work is positioned, there we have a much more powerful adversary, where it can take this chip or a device or whatever the little thing is doing cryptographic computations. He can do whatever he wants with it. Of course, there are different models and different restrictions, but he can open it up, he can listen to it, he can even inject faults and then make conclusions based on this. So as you can see, even if the algorithm is very strong, and even if it's correctly implemented, still we can, the device is in the hands of the attacker, so he can still break the implementation. That's why only a correct implementation is not enough. It has to be side channel resistant. And all these ways of attacking, we call side channel, the ones that are passive, the ones that the adversary is only collecting traces or is measuring the power or the magnetic field. And they also can be active. These are the fault injection attacks that an adversary could do. So these two type of attacks have been discovered in the 90s, so not that far ago. And there were two seminal papers which put the beginning of this type of research. The first one is from '97 by Biham and Shamir, where they described the differential fault analysis. And 2 years later, Paul Kocher has published his paper about differential power analysis. And these two papers actually became to be very important and have started the whole new research community working on protecting implementation against physical attacks. Now this community is quite broad. It's very important for industry as well. All semiconductors companies are very involved and very interested in the research of this community. There is a whole bunch of conferences already and journals which are only devoted on research for protecting implementations against physical attacks. And we talk about software implementations and hardware implementations, but I'm mainly going to talk about hardware implementations. So as I said, there are passive, the attacks are divided into two main classes: passive attacks, or the so-called differential power analysis, for example, where or called DPA. DPA attacks are exploiting the dependency of the power consumption, the data dependency of the power consumption of a crypto device. So the depends between the process data and the consumption that of the power of power. What device is using when calculating cryptographic operations. And they use a large amount of traces, which they analyze at a fixed moment of time as a function of the process data. And then you get this type of graphics, and when you have a peak, you can actually get information and make conclusions, and you can reveal the secret key easily in a protected implementation without even breaking the algorithm. The other type of attacks are the active attacks, which basically tamper with the device. They inject a fault, which can be done in different ways. It can be by injecting a laser pointer, or by using clock glitch, or putting the device in a temperature chamber. And all these methods generate different types of faults in the computation. And because the adversary knows what kind of fault it has injected, he can make very precise conclusions about the ciphertext, for example, and can also reveal the key in this way. For all these years that has been the research has developed since the 90s, there have been developed different methods to protect against side channel adversary. I'll start with one of the most common and popular countermeasure, which is called masking. And this is a countermeasure used to protect implementations against side channel attacks. And the basic idea is, the goal of the designer in this case is to remove the correlation between the secret key and the processed data. And how do we do that? We do that by splitting the data in shares, in pieces, and then the operations, which are so that intermediate values which the adversary would listen to and would eventually leak information. They are not of use for the adversary, because they're only partial information, and the full the complete result is revealed only at the end of the computation. So, for example, if you want to compute a function y, which is a function of x, we split the input x into shares. This is the most simple case, of course. You can think of x1 to be as a one-time path encryption of x with the key x2. Then y can be recovered from y1 and y2. And the important thing is that f1 of x1 reveals nothing about x, because one of the share is missing. And even if an adversary compromises an entire part of the chip, for example, the one that f1 is there, no sensitive information is leaked. And this is essentially a variant of the wire prop model of Sahai and Wagner, which is a paper from 2003 at Crypto, and I'll talk about it a bit later again about it. So masking can be different types, can be Boolean, arithmetic, multiplicative, depending on the operation that is used. Here I will talk about Boolean masking. And of course, we have this physical real world scenario. We have the oscilloscope, we have the setup, we have the devices that are doing some computations. This is the reality, the physical world, but we have to translate this reality into the mathematics, into abstractions, so that we can investigate them and put this in formulas and protect the implementations already on the algorithmic level. How do we do that? We design models, security models, adversary models. And of course, this is not a very easy task because you have to be at the same time close to reality and also close to mathematics, close to abstraction that you could actually model in formulas. The main goal is, and this is the bottom, these are the, on this slide I have 3 of the most important security models that we normally consider. At the bottom is what we want at the end, actually, namely that the number of traces an adversary collects is inversely proportional to something which grows exponentially. But many of those, so we want the correlation between the leakage which comes from the shares to be the total leakage actually to be bounded by the leakage of each share. So this is a very nice model, but it's very difficult to be used for analyzing all the schemes that we have. So we need a higher abstraction, and one level higher abstraction is the so-called bounded moment security, where it's a kind of intermediate abstraction, which is about the statistical security order. So we want to force all the statistical moments of the distributions to be independent of the data X. Of course, this it depends on the security order, which translates in the order statistical models, can be first order, which is mutual information, or second order, which is variance, and so on. And the last model is called probing security, which is the nicest for us, the nicest way to actually analyze implementations, where we give the adversary the ability to probe or read all the wires but one. Of course, we cannot give him all the wires, then he will reveal easily the secrets. So the good thing is that we have relations between all these models. For example, starting from probing security, we can start analyzing there, but because this is not very close to reality, we don't encounter the presence of noise, for example, which is very important actually in implementations. If we add in some way noise to the probing security, we'll get the noisy leakage security. The bounded security model cannot be put back to the probing security, but to probing security, if we add independence, the assumption of independence, we get bounded security model. And maybe if we add also noise, we add the noisy leakage security, but that's not very straightforward. So in our work, what we use to design countermeasures is secret sharing and multi-party computation. And actually, there is a lot of similarity between the world of multi-party computation. I assume most of the audience knows what multi-party computation is. This is when different parties, this is also actually in the original MPC world, we talk about servers. So a couple of servers, number of servers, they cooperate to compute certain function together, but they only have a share of the inputs. They don't know the full input. And there is a whole protocol and many protocols that are designed, which allows a number of parties by only using their shares to compute together a function. Here is quite similar. We have the shares, which are the input data is divided into shares, and then we compute some functions which are based on these shares, which depend normally not on all of the shares, in a way that the output at the end is correct and gives, but the computation is done only over the shares, so that even the adversary is measuring the information that is leaked doesn't give him enough for revealing the secrets. As we said, there is passive and active. Also in the MPC world, they consider passive and active adversaries, which correspond to the passive adversary in the physical world, which is the side channel adversary, and the fault injection adversary also corresponds to the active adversaries in the MPC. So some of the techniques that are used in MPC will be translated into the embedded world, but we'll see later there are some essential differences which we have to take care of. Also, the type of adversary can be different. We can allow the adversary to listen to a specific number of wires. And then we have a solution that I will talk about, it's called M&M. Or we can also make it more a strong adversary and allow the adversary to listen to a whole area of the chip, which we call tiles, which is basically a representation of MPC on a chip. And here is also more schematically. On the left side, you have the wires. So all these lines are actually wires, and the adversary is allowed to probe. Of course, the number of probes is not always the same. It depends on the order of the attack. The more probes the adversary has, the more powerful it is. But also, the more complex becomes the analysis of the traces that it collects. So it's a trade-off. It needs more time and more resources to do a higher order attacks. And on the right side is a chip, which is divided into areas. But in this area, we can also have registers, wires. It's much more broad than the wired adversary. Also, probing could be adaptive, or which corresponds to the proactive adversary in the MPC setting, meaning that with the time, the probes could change to a different place. So people have, so actually people from MPC world tried to apply their knowledge and to propose solutions for the hardware implementations. And the first work was by Ishai, Sarai, and Wagner in 2003. They have proposed the so-called private circuits, which is an exact analogy of MPC in GF2. And they consider temporal separation, simulating the MPC approach. This is a very good solution for software implementations. But if you implement, and this is an example of how would you do in practice the implementation. But if you consider hardware implementations, this is not going to be secure because of some physical effects which appear in hardware, like transitions and glitches. And these glitches are not taken into account in this model. And in software, the operations are usually always done in serial or sequential manner, while in hardware operations are done in parallel. This is also a very essential difference, and we need different techniques. Threshold implementation is a countermeasure that we have invented about 10 years, more than 10 years ago with Vincent Ryman, and we have actually proposed the first countermeasure, which is secure in presence of glitches. We employ again techniques from secret sharing and MPC. It's also quite efficient, has been implemented for many algorithms, and of course there is overhead because we share, so we need more area, but the overhead is quite limited and affordable. It doesn't depend on the hardware technology, it's on algorithmic level, which is also an advantage because there are other countermeasures which make assumptions on the hardware, but it's much more difficult to change the hardware and to have assumptions on the hardware than to use any hardware and just put algorithmic countermeasure on top of it. And it has first been proposed for first order attacks and later extended to any order attacks. Here is TI in a nutshell. There are three important properties of TI, which have to be satisfied, all of them, in order to guarantee provable security against side channel adversary in presence of glitches. Of course, the first one is correctness. We have to have a correct implementation. The sum of the output shares should give the desired output. The second property is very important. It's called non-completeness, which means that every component function is independent of at least one share of each input variable, which ensures that the power consumption of each component function is independent of X. So as you can see, for example, the component function S1 is not, it doesn't depend on the first share, S2 does not depend on the second share, and so on. And since the power consumption of each component function is independent of X, then also the average power consumption will be independent of X. And the third property is called uniformity, which is a bit more complicated to achieve and to explain, but it's also very important. It means basically that any bias present in the joint distribution of the input shares is due to the bias in the joint distribution of the unshared values. So by sharing, we don't introduce more bias. And it's especially important when we have, like in this implementation, for example, we have several stages, several phases. So we often cannot, this is AES implementation. AES is a very complex S-box, and you cannot share it at once. Usually you have to cut it in phases. So for each of these phases, you need uniform input. So that's why here the sharing has to be uniform. And on top of it, we have to put registers in between to prevent the propagation of glitches. And these registers are very important for the security of the TI. So this is one example of AES implementation based on CANwrite S-box. This is only the S-box. The blocks around it. As you can see, we have linear and nonlinear operations. Always it's easier in Boolean masking to do linear operations. It's straightforward, but the nonlinear operations like inversion and multiplication are more challenging. That's why there usually we need more shares, and this is where it gets also more area is used. Another implementation of AES is here. I just show it schematically to show you all the different stages. What we use is actually we are changing the number of shares dynamically depending on the operation. For example, inversion is a cubic function and multiplication is quadratic. In GF16, the inversion can be seen as 4-bit permutation and the multiplier as a 4-bit multiplication. Hence, only 3 stages and uniform sharings are used, which means also less randomness. Sometimes we also use 2 shares. Sometimes we use more than 2 shares. Linear operations we normally do with 2 shares because that's the minimum, but sometimes we even do linear operations with more than 2 shares just to avoid to add more extra randomness. So as you can see, for example, here, the inverter we have implemented with 5 shares. Then the multipliers we have done with 4 input and 3 output shares. Even sometimes we use different number of shares for input and output. Of course, the squaring, which is linear, we use 2 shares. Then the linear maps, the linear map, which is in the beginning, is with 4 shares, and the last one is with 3 shares. And the registers are put after every nonlinear function. That's also very important. What is important also is that we use remasking to change the number of shares. So how do you go from 5 to 4, for example? You use some randomness. And yeah, in this way, you have you achieve the implementation, which is much more compact than the previous implementation, which is from 2010 at Eurocrypt, the first actual implementation of AES with TI. Later on, in 2015, we have found out that actually, under some conditions, you can also do this with D+1 shares. D is the order of protection, the order of attack against which you protect. And the previous implementations were always DT+1, where T is the algebraic degree of the function. So you can do it with less shares, but then you have to take care much more about the randomness. And as you can see, now we have 6 stages instead of 3. And this is, yeah, this is also important. This is second order secure AES. The previous example was only first order secure. And as you can see, again, we have different blocks with different number of shares, and we have registers between each of these blocks. And these registers are of different size depending on the input and the output. For D+1 shares, there was also another proposal, which is called domain-oriented masking, which is depicted here. It's quite similar as TI, but with a bit different resharing procedure. I'm not going to go there into details. So this is when you only have side channel attacks. So for in the beginning, we only introduced this for side channel protection. But then, of course, if you are an adversary and if you can inject faults, even if your implementation is side channel protected, it will not care about the side channels. He will do just a fault attack, and then he will get the secret. For the adversaries, it doesn't matter how he gets the secret. The only important thing is he gets the secret. So we have to protect actually against combined attacks. So we have to protect so that an adversary which can do both and side channel and fault simultaneously, we stop the adversary doing this. So we protect against it. Going back to what are the protection mechanisms in the 2 cases. So in side channel world, as we have shown already, we use hiding. I didn't talk about it because that's not in my field, but it's also less used and less popular than masking. So what do you do? I guess we already understood. We split the input in shares, and then we do the operations on the shares, and then combine at the end. Against fault attacks, what is used redundancy. So you have the plain text, and you have some redundant plain text or attack or whatever you want to call it. And then you do somehow, you implement the AES with the redundancy, and then as output you get the plain text, the ciphertext and some redundant ciphertext. And then what you do is use either detection or correction or effective computation to see if any fault has been done. Effective computation means that you enter some randomness in a way that if there is has been a fault injected, then the output is garbage, so the attacker cannot use it. So how do we protect against combined attacks? We somehow have to have the sharings. We somehow have to have also redundancy. We have to figure out how to do how to implement the algorithm, AES or anything else, so that at the end we can detect if there was a fault or not, and to be sure that we are protecting against leaking. So we will again talk about Boolean sharing. And as always, the linear operations are easy, but the big question is how do we do non-linear operations, and namely multiplications. What has been done so far? I'm going back again to the MPC world because we will use again MPC as inspiration. So in the MPC world, we had the Shamir secret sharing as which is secure against passive adversary, and it has been extended to active adversary with the introduction of the SPDZ protocol. We have used Shamir secret sharing MPC to design masking, TI, and all kind of protection mechanisms to protect against side channel attacks. Now we are wondering what should we do with combined attacks. So what we proposed is the following. We have actually two proposals. One proposal is Kappa, which was presented at Crypto 2018 and is based on SPITS, on an active MPC protocol. So we start from active protocol from MPC, and we design a countermeasure for combined attacks. And the second proposal is called M&M, which was presented a year later at CHES. And it's actually starting from the masking schemes that we know, for example, TI, and transforming it to a countermeasure against combined attacks. How do we do this? In both schemes, we use some redundancy function, the same redundancy function, which is information theoretic MAKAUT. For every data block X, there is a tag which is multiplication with alpha over G over the Galois field. And for the MAC key is constant through the entire implementation, but it has to be fresh for every computation. The MAC key is alpha from GF2 to the K to the power M. So back to MPC and to compare with the embedded security world. On the top, here are the properties of the MPC world, and here are the embedded world characteristics. So what about communication? We know that in the MPC world, the communication is very expensive. But in the embedded world, on the chip, the communication is basically wiring. So this is for granted, for free. The local memory is relatively cheap for MPC because you have big computers, and they have normally enough memory. While in a small chip, it's very restricted in storage, in memory. So these are two very important differences we have to take into account when we design the countermeasures. In the MPC world, the adversaries are actually parties. They're internal adversaries. They're part of these end parties that are supposed to collaborate and compute a function. While in the embedded world, you have a chip which is closed, and the adversary is external, which takes the chip and then plays with it. Also, we don't have to worry about rushing adversary, which is used in MPC, because we have no problem with synchronization, and we have zero propagation delay. So we translate the active adversary with dishonest majority from the MPC world into the tile, prop, and fault model. Tiles because we have divided the chip into areas, and we allow the adversary to prop and to fault. So here is the model, which we call Kappa. We talk about, we actually inherit the property of SPITS, which are very strong assumptions. The adversary is static. We have two types of adversary actually for the combined fault adversary and side channel adversary. For the side channel adversary, we allow to probe all intermediates within D out of the D+1 tiles, and to get a correct value. Correct value can be disclosed with probability 1, so it's a very powerful adversary. The faulting adversaries are two types. One is the so-called exact and known adversary, which is, for example, using a very precise laser in up to D tiles and with probability 1. And The second type of adversary is random, which can be, for example, using clock glitching. It cannot be very precise, but we don't put any restrictions on the number of tiles that the adversary can fault. So the combination of these two, of the faults and the props and the interaction between them over D tiles, is the combined adversary. And note that also the leakage due to hardware effects such as coupling or glitches with one tile, within one tile, are also included in the model. How do we do the multiplication? This is the big question. We do it exactly like Spitz is doing it. And this is by using the Beaver multiplications. And Beaver multiplications are, in a way, blinding the inputs, and then MAKAUT check of the blinded values. We need two random values, A and B, and a C, which is the multiplication of A and B. We have to generate them somehow. Let's assume for now we have a way to generate it. Then we use this A, B, C, and the corresponding tags together with X and Y, the two inputs and the corresponding tags, to compute the multiplication of these inputs and the corresponding tag. How do we do that? Let's assume this thing here on the left side is one tile. Each tile gets a share of each of the values and the tags. And the first step is the so-called blinding step, which X, the input, is blinded with the random value A. And each of the tiles computes epsilon I, which is the share of X plus the share of the random I. And the same for Y. And the same for the corresponding tags. These values, the epsilon I and the eta I, are broadcasted from each tile to the rest of the tiles. And to ensure synchronization, we put a register. Then each of the tiles gets all these inputs, all these broadcasted values from the blinding step, which are used locally. Each of the tiles can locally compute the partial unmasking, but that's okay. So they compute epsilon and eta. That's okay because we don't get X, but we get it blinded, masked, basically. And then we each of the tiles uses this values to compute the output shares, zeta I, and so, correspondingly the output shares of the tags. So it's exactly the same like in the Spitz, except that the MAKAUT check is done immediately. It's not stored because we don't have possibility to store on the chip, but we have fast communication, the wiring, so we immediately do the checks for the tags. And how we do that? Each of the tiles can compute this delta I with the values that already computed with this share and this share. And then each of them also, again, in the same way, broadcasts this delta I, this share of the difference. Of course, we have a register again for synchronization. And once each of the tile, once they have all the inputs from the rest of the tiles, they can locally compute the delta. And if this delta is 0, everything is fine. If the delta is not 0, then something went wrong. There was a fault. How do we compute the Beaver triples? What MPC does is they are using fully homomorphic encryption to compute the Beaver triples. Of course, we cannot afford having running fully homomorphic encryption on a chip. It's extremely expensive. What we do is we just use what we have in the masking world. We have masked multiplications. So what we do, we generate A and B, the shares of A and B, then we multiply and we get the C, the shares of C. Then we have 3 more multiplications and we get the tax. And this is done on the fly while computation is done. Of course, you may say this is only side channel protected because you have masked multiplications. For the detecting the bad beavers, the bad beaver triples, or for faults, we use a procedure which is developed in the MPC protocols in SPITS called sacrificing. But it's exactly the same as in the SPITS protocol, so I'm not going to describe it here. So finally, the results. As you can probably guess, this is a very, very costly implementation. We did implement AES, and we have results here in the table, but they are even in bytes, not in bits. So it's a really huge implementation. Obviously, most probably this is not practical, at least not at the moment, not realistic, but this is because also the adversary is super powerful. It's probably the most powerful combined adversary that you could imagine. This is a framework. This is just the first step. This is the first combined countermeasure and the first combined model that has been proposed. So that's why it's so expensive, but it's provably secure and relies completely on the provable security of the MPC protocol. Of course, as I said in the beginning, we can also take an alternative route, starting from masking and add fault countermeasures. And this is what we do in the M&M adversary model. There, the side channel adversary is deprobing and noisy leakage model. We use the deprobing and the noisy leakage model. The fault adversary also can be two different. The fault can be stochastic additive error when we don't limit the number of bits, or the fault can be exact, like from a laser, and then it's limited to D shares. And we don't have the tile prop and fault model, which means we don't have provable security. So again, the question is, how do we do the multiplication? We just used a secure mask multiplication. And this can be any of the known secure mask multiplications, TI or TOM or CMS or whatever you like to use. For the masks, that's perfectly fine. For the tags, you get alpha square XY instead of alpha, which you can easily remedy by multiplying with alpha inverse, and then you get the correct tag. And in this way, actually, you have already a multiplication, which you can use for any algorithm you want. But of course, you want to do a bit better than this, because here you can see the scaling factor is three times, because you have 3 multiplications. We can do a bit better, and I'll give an example for power function. For example, imagine that you want to get the operations for x to the power 5. For the tags, we have to multiply. So here is again a mask multiplication, but here we get something in front. You don't get the valid tag, so you have to multiply with 2 to the power 4. If we have alpha to the power 4, if you have x to the power 5, and then you have the correct tag already. But if we want to do AES, which is normally what we want to do, we have unfortunately even power function to the 254. But still, if we take the inversion in order to get a valid tag, again, we have to multiply with alpha square. which is no problem at all because it's a linear, because it's a squaring, and squaring is linear operation. Like before, alpha to the power 4 was also easy because it doesn't have cross products, and alpha to the power 2 is also easy to do. This is the inversion pipeline for AES with 9 stages. This is the most optimal that we could come up with. So we have the building block. It can be used for any algorithm. Of course, there are different flavors of masking, so TI or CMS or DOM or whatever. Of course, there are also different flavors. Then this will bring different flavor in the M&M countermeasure, but it's perfectly usable and applicable to any. This was for the side channel part. Now let's talk about the fault. How do we check the fault? We don't use error correction or detection because this is not gonna be good for, it's vulnerable to combined attacks, but instead we use infective computation, which is we add some redundancy, some randomness in a way that if the attack is correct, then this will just cancel out and we will have the ciphertext. If the attack was, if it was faulted, then we will have some garbage added to the ciphertext, and the adversary will not be able to do anything with output. And here are the results. As you can see, we already are going down to bits, and it's much more efficient than kappa. The overhead factor is about 2.54, 2.63, which is very, very reasonable. Of course, the adversary model is weaker, but it's much more realistic than kappa. It's not vulnerable to the state-of-the-art attacks, but to be honest, there are not too many yet. So it could happen that in the future some new attacks come and find problem. But it's of course not provably secure since we didn't derive it from MPC. We cannot rely on the provable security coming from MPC. Now to compare, so the DPA protection is quite similar, but they both are protected against glitches, but the number of probes for M is D and for kappa is unlimited. For DFA, the only difference is that we don't have safe error attacks protection, and for combined attacks, we only don't have provable security for M&M. So what next? Of course, we want to do to improve the efficiency. For example, we can think of cheaper generation of beaver triplets for kappa. We can also relax the kappa adversary and become more efficient. We should look for provable security against combined attacks at much less cost than what kappa is requiring. And of course, we would be nice to have verification tools for combined attacks which are developed. And we have developed verification tools in our group, both for fault and for side channel, which help us to check the implementations on early stage before we go to the lab, already in the design process, which is quite helpful because normally what you do is you implement your hardware over on a FPGA board, and then you go to the lab and then you see the leakage, but all the process of designing and implementing has already been finished, and you have to start all over again. And sometimes it's also not easy to detect why the leakage is there, where it comes from, and so on. So we have different verification tools developed which could check the implementations on an early stage, which of course doesn't exclude going to the evaluation lab. So in conclusion, we can use techniques from MPC to design algorithmic countermeasures, and this is very successful. We have to be also careful with issues and trade-offs with respect to, for example, what functions can we compute, the threshold, the resistance to certain order of side channel attacks. Also, we have to try to minimize the randomness, which is needed as much as possible, but that's not always possible. And that's all I have to say. There's a lot of noise. I don't know where it comes from.
Any question from the audience? Hello? Hello, any question from the audience? Hello?
Hello.
Hello, Debashish Sugato here. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello, Debashish Sugato here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can.
Yeah, hi. It's just to say hi to Svetla for
Hi.
her wonderful talk. This is Sugata Gangopadhyay, and it's indeed a pleasure to listen to her. I have read some of these excellent papers for quite some time and trying to understand them, and to listen to Svetla explaining them so nicely with so nice slides, and it's absolutely great. Thank you, Svetla.
Thank you.
So from a participant, any questions are there from participant end?
Hello, Nikova, I'm Dipanita here.
Mm-hmm.
We met sometime Ask in Singapore. Hope you remember. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Yes, I saw your picture.
So today's it is a very nice lecture, and actually the particularly you have given the inner things of that threshold cryptography. Very basic things. I think students will be it will be very beneficial for the students.
Yes.
Very nice presentation. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nico.
Thank you.
From audience, any questions is there? Okay, Professor Nikova, so combined attack is take less time than the kappa.
I don't understand. I didn't understand.
Combined attack take less time consuming than the kappa.
Kappa is much more expensive in area and in everything.
Okay.
It's just very big.
Okay, Nikova, I have one question that regarding that verification tool that you just mentioned at the last slide, that
Yes.
verification tool for combined attack. What exactly what is the aim of making that tool? This is hardware? This is actually we're making, or this is a
No.
design? This is a hardware.
We have two tools. One is for side channel, and one is for fault.
Okay.
And basically, it's called Vermi and Vermi. Basically, the one for side channel is checking if the implementation complies with all the properties of TI when it's a TI implementation, because we have seen many examples of implementations that they just miss something, and the non-completeness is not satisfied, and then the whole security is gone. That's one. And the second one, we also in the same tool check for uniformity. So we basically check. We take the Verilog code or the VHDL code, and we put it in the tool, and the tool can tell you if there is any bad implementation which doesn't comply the properties. The other tool is for checking faults. It's simulating faults, obviously, because we don't do them in the real. It's simulating different types of faults, and it's checking the implementation also if it's secure against these faults.
So finally, the aim is that in the secure design that should be embedded, this embedded systems type of thing, or only to.
I don't understand what you mean. That's for hardware implementations, yes.
Okay, fine. I got it.
But it's on early stage, not when you put it on a chip or on FPGA, but much before that, when you still write the code.
Yes, I got that. Okay.
Yes. While there are other tools which check the place and route after the place and route phase,
Yes.
but we don't do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Professor Nikova, for your nice presentation.
Thank you.
That is very informative to us, and that will be very much helpful to our students as well as faculty and research community. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge. And
thanks a lot.
Okay.
I'll stop sharing.
Hello. So thank you for your nice presentations. And you see, our next speaker is Professor Sugato Gangobadhyay.
Hello, can you hear me, Devashish? Hello, Devashish.
He is a professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering of IIT Roorkee. And his research area is cryptography, Boolean functions, team cipher cryptanalysis, and he will speak today time memory trade of data. So, Sagarika, please you share your screen and
yes, I'll share my screen. But are you able to hear me?
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, we
Wonderful.
can hear. We can hear.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll share the screen now. Let us see. And so here, where is my slide? I thought this is my slide. All right. So, well, I will be, so these are my slides. Devashish, are you able to see my slides?
Yes, it is visible.
Wonderful. And I'll start the annotation also, so that if I write something on the slide, then this should be visible. Let us see. So if I write, what is happening? Just let me see, because I'm trying to start this thing.
Prem, can you Prem, can you help him? Prem Kumar. Hello.
Usually it works. I don't know why it is not working. It will be better. And otherwise, also I can lecture. But is there something that you can start the annotation thing?
Prem
or
Kumar,
like
can you help him?
Okay, it is working now. No. Is there something wrong with my?
Prem Kumar.
Hello.
Prem Kumar.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you help?
It's working. It's just white.
It is wiping, but it is not
white.
wiping.
You can see it. It writes on the text, but it's white. So
it's white. Yes. That's what's happening, and I'll try to kind of.
I don't know if you can
the
change
color. Yeah. Okay, I found it. Yeah, that's the one. I'll make it blue or black. Blue is better. Yes. Wonderful. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right. So let me start. So, well, it is kind of going back a little, because what Svetla is talking about is something very sophisticated and modern. So I'll be going back to probably the first attack on block ciphers that was proposed by Martin Hellman and published in 1980s. So I'd like to present from the beginning, and then well, then actually it is a bit of like going back, because Svetla is telling the state of the art, like what is happening now in the crypto community, what is happening now with block ciphers and all that, because now we expect that the attacker has power over the access to the device. He can use the differences in power consumption, and he can also use he can also inject faults. Yes, these are very, this is the reality. Now I go back some 40 years ago, and I go back to very basic attacks, and there, so that is time memory trade-off attack, and I have prepared it for the students, and like for who might not have even a course on cryptography, to let us see whether we can understand it or not. And I'll always invite questions from students. If they don't understand, please, I'd like to answer questions. Please ask questions. That's one thing. And another point that I would like to, well, this is like to mention, that is, it is wonderful to be talking to this program arranged by MAKAUT, that is Maulana Abul Kalam Azad University of Technology, West Bengal, and it is in collaboration with Islamic University of Technology in Kashmir. And I am, well, everyone can guess that I have got strong connections and link to West Bengal, and I am sitting right now very near to Kashmir. I am near to, probably around 10 hours away from Kashmir, and probably about 10 hours by train, and probably 1 hour flight to Srinagar, and Calcutta is little further away. So it's wonderful to be sitting somewhere in between and addressing in a conference organized by both these universities. That's all. So this whatever I will be talking on today is jointly prepared by my student Nishant Sinha. So when he joined sometime around 2013 with me, so, and I suggested him time memory trade-off attack, and then I understood a little bit Hellman's attack and some other things, but he read a lot, and he read about Shamir and Birukov's attack, and Golich and Babbage and Golich's attack, and like that, and then he thought about those things, and it's basically talking to him that I understood all these things. And right now he is working as a security researcher in Robert Bosch Engineering and Business Solutions in Private Limited in India. So he has gone to industry and securing their autonomous vehicles and designing algorithms for autonomous vehicles and all that. So that is what has happened. Now I'll start in the beginning with introduction to cryptography. And so wait a moment. So if you look at, well, this is for students, of course. So if you look at Douglas Stinson's book, you will find that he says that a crypto system is a 5-tuple of sets. They call them PCKED. PCK, working very strangely. E and D, and why it is like this, I don't know. Okay, so well, you will find that he talks like that, and where P is the set of plain text, and C is the set of ciphertext, and K is the set of keys, and we have encryption functions. So we have encryption function is a function so which takes a key and a plain text, and then it produces a ciphertext. And for each key, I have a encryption function and a decryption function, so that if I apply the decryption function on the encrypted text with the key K and apply the same key, then I should be getting back whatever was encrypted, and that should happen for all x belonging to P, because otherwise it makes no sense. So we have things like this. Now let us move to the next slide. So if we are looking at block ciphers, then our whatever we want to encrypt and the encrypted text, all are strings of 0, 1. So these are binary strings of finite length. And so I can say that these are elements of this set, that is a set of all strings of finite length. And if I get any string like this that I would like to encrypt, that can be broken up into segments of a fixed length. So let us say capital N. So each segment is of length n, small n. So as you see that these are all n tuples, and so I have got n blocks. So I have a situation like this. So here, if we now go back to the previous slide and ask ourselves that then what is a plain text, what is a ciphertext, and what are the keys, then we can at least say that here our plain text are fixed length blocks of length n. These are my plain text. So plain text are coming from this set. This means that these are strings of 0, 1 of length n, and I would like to change them to some other blocks. And in between I have keys, and keys can be of blocks of some other length or the same length. So both are possible. Now, so if we look at a block cipher here, I think I have a now, okay. All right, so to fix some notations, by F2, I will mean a field which has got 0, 1. So if you don't know field, then that's not a problem. So it's a set with which has got element 0, 1, and which has an addition that is essentially what we call XOR. So you will have things like this: 0, 0 is 0, 0, 1 is 1, then 1, 0 is 1, and 1, 1 is 0. And then we have a multiplication, and the multiplication, we don't write multiplication. I mean, if we want to write x multiplied by y, then we write just x into y. And this is actually works exactly as integer multiplication, but our set is a very restricted set consisting of 0 and 1. So I have got 0, and 0 into 1 is 0, and 1 into 0 is 0, and 1 into 1 is 1. So these are the two. This is what makes F2 a so-called field. And I can take Cartesian product of F2 some n times. So I will get length of a set which consists of n length string. All right, so I can write this. And so this is this. And if we care for some algebra, then we know that this is an n-dimensional vector space. F2 raised to the power n is an n-dimensional vector space over F2. So that is the setup that we have. And as you see that when I write this, so these are precisely the set of all plain text. And it will ultimately become the set of all ciphertext as well, and probably the set of all keys. So that's a setup that we have. Then we move a little further ahead. Now we come to block cipher. Of course, we can look at a very, very elementary, extremely elementary model of a block cipher. You have seen really what block cipher is in the last lecture. So of course, a block cipher is not a box like this where you have a plain text going here, key is going here, and a ciphertext coming out. And you have seen the state of the art, that how difficult it is to construct block ciphers, and that and how difficult it is to go into the all details, and how and from the best research group in the world. But if we look at a totally representative thing, that we don't care what is going on inside, then we have an n-bit string going in. We have to choose a key. By using these two things, we are combining them by a function E. So we can call that a block cipher. And so this E, and so I have got X and K, and that gives me Y. That is my cipher. All right. Now I will go for, so here I will take f2 to the power m, that is n-bit strings, as my n-bit strings as my keys, and I have got n-bit strings as my plaintext. As I've told, those are the blocks, and n-bit string, n-bit block is going to be changed to an n-bit block. So that is the setup that we have over here. All right. Now, so I will so as I see the challenge of a block cipher, well, that as I see it is that ultimately, if we have an n-bit string and we want to find out a rule that is changing this n-bit string to an n-bit string. So ultimately, we are looking at a permutation. We want to design a permutation, and the number of permutations is equal to 2 to the power n factorial. So if I want to choose at random a permutation, then I have to have an access to a space of this order. And if I am correct, then it is something like 2 to the power 2 to the power n. So I'll never be able to access a set of such an order. What I am instead, I have a key space which is of order 2 to the power m. That m, that is f2 to the power m. So the order of this space, that is number of keys, is 2 to the power m. So somehow I have to construct a function. I mean, construct a set of functions which are tagged by using 2 to the power m keys, so that if I pick up at random from that very, very small space, although it is actually it's in reality pretty large, but nothing compared to 2 to the power n factorial, then it should appear that I am choosing uniformly at random from this whole space. And so the question is, how do I do that? So this is a massive question, and also have to make it efficient in implementation, software or hardware, as the case may be. And so it's a very difficult question, which is not always apparent. So now I will move on from here to, I'll skip a little because I want to come to the main point, that if there are some very basic standard structures, like there's something called a Feistel network, which was used in DES, and there is, of course, something called a substitution permutation network. This is the exactly copy from Douglas Stinson's book on cryptography theory and practice. This is the cipher, and it's a nice cipher. And these are the S boxes that were used in Douglas Stinson's book, but there can be better S boxes there on 4x4 S boxes. And now we come to the models, the cryptographic, the attack models. So this is all right. So when we attack a cipher, then we can say that, okay, we know all the internal designs of the cipher, but we do not know. Of course, we do not know the key, because if we know the key, then there is no point attacking that. But we also, suppose we do not know the plain text also. So that is a model, but this model is rarely used. This is called ciphertext only model. That means that the attacker has access only to the ciphertext and nothing else. This is actually not very realistic. What is more realistic is known plain text attack, chosen plain text attack, chosen ciphertext attack, and now in the previous lecture you have seen more realistic attacks, and that are essentially making it making it essential to design more sophisticated ciphers. So, but the basic textbook things are known plain text attack and chosen plain text attack. So when we are talking about known plain text attack, then the attacker has access to several ciphertext plain text pairs. So this is also one point that Svetla talked about in the beginning, that there is a Karkov's principle which says that the attacker has access to the design of the cipher. But apart from that, we are now assuming in known plain text attack that the attacker has access to a large number of plain text ciphertext pair, although he doesn't have access to the key. Of course, he doesn't have the access to the key. And in the chosen plain text attack, we assume that attacker has more access. That is, as attacker has in all practical sense, has at least for some time has an access over the encryption device, although he doesn't know this key. So attacker doesn't know the key, but attacker can encrypt. So that is why what is happening is that he can choose a plain text and see what is happening to the ciphertext, although he doesn't know the key. So he can somehow make the encryption algorithm encrypt his chosen plain text and give him the ciphertext. Now, at this point, you may wonder that why it is happening like this, but is it realistic at all? But it is realistic. When a cipher is operating within a protocol, it is possible for the attacker to choose a plain text and get that plain text encrypted by the encryption function. This is possible. Today we will be talking more on chosen plain text attacks. Now let us move further. So as I told you that this is the situation over here, that we have, so our assumption is that there is a, it is surely, it is assumed that the adversary knows the plain text ciphertext pair x0 y0 but doesn't know the key. So this is the known plain text attack model. Now let me see whether I have written something else. No, I have not written this. So I will just cancel this and write it as a what it should look like if we are talking about a chosen plain text attack. So if this known is removed, and if I write chosen plain text, then what will happen? Chosen plain text attack. In the chosen plain text attack model, so the adversary chooses the plain text ciphertext pair. He doesn't chooses the plain text and gets the ciphertext y0. So what happens? So the adversary chooses. So the adversary can, sorry, it's a bit of a, it's become a messy anyway. So I should have an eraser. Yeah. So wait a moment. So the attacker can choose adversary chooses the plain text. This is the choice. He doesn't know the key, and he gets this. So he has access to these two strings. Both of them are in f to n. So both are, let us say the block length is n. So both of them are here, f2 raised to the power n, and he doesn't know the key. All right. So that's the kind of model that we are working on. So it's not known plain text, but it is chosen plain text. All right. So all right. So now let us move a little bit further down. Okay. Now I come to the first question. Now, what is the exhaustive search attack? First of all, when someone talks about exhaustive search attack, then if you look at textbooks, then they will say that exhaustive search attack is not an attack, because then you have to go through all the then you have to go through all the possible keys. But all right, but the question is that suppose even then we are talking about exhaustive search attack, then the question is that what do I have to do? Now I will be talking about exhaustive search attack on the chosen plain text model. So suppose someone tells me that I can choose my ciphertext. Sorry, suppose someone tells me that I can choose the plain text x0, and then tells me that can you mount an exhaustive search attack on the cipher, then what do we have to do? I'm working on the chosen ciphertext attack model. And what I may do is something like this, that I will do a part of pre-computation. This is pre-computation. I will prepare a table, and then I will kind of invert the role of plain text and key. So what I may do is that I may say that, okay, this is my cipher E. So I know that I can always put x0 through that cipher, whatever, even on a online phase. So now I develop this cipher, and just keep on running it over all possible keys and then storing the result in a table. So I will need a huge memory, but I can suppose, given that I have that memory, then I can do that. So what I do is that I essentially run the cipher. This is a one-time pre-computation. So what I do is that I essentially run the cipher with my chosen plain text with all the keys, and then I will prepare this table. Now, in the online phase, I do not know the key, but I can always put in this X0 inside this for encryption. I will do that, and I will get Y0 over here. And then once I get this Y0, I will search in this table. And this search is, I can do in log time, supposing that apart from storing all these results, actually all these results, that K1 corresponding to Y1, K2 corresponding to Y2, apart from doing that, if I have also sorted them, searching a sorted table takes me log time, so I can do it in log to base 2 of 2 to the power m. So this will take me a constant multiple of m many steps, a small constant multiple of m many steps, and therefore I should be able to find out which element here matches Y0. Suppose it is here, the ith element, suppose Yi matches Y0, then I know that Ki is the candidate key. So this is the way of, this is an exhaustive search attack when I'm talking about when I have got huge memory and when I am allowed to choose a plain text. Now, then how much memory do I need? The interesting point here is that I need huge memory. I need to store a table of size 2 to the power m. So I must need this memory. So I can say that this is the complexity of order of m. I may call this my memory complexity, that I need this much storage. But and I need also computation of this much because I have to run through all these keys. That will also require 2 to the power n computation. So that is P, that requires capital O of 2 to the power m. But my point is that this is a pre-computation, this is a one-time computation, so I might be able to do this. I don't have to do over and over again. Suppose I'm able to do these two things, then in the online phase, I just need a computation of order of m because I have to do it on a sorted table. I have to search something on a sorted table. So my online computation becomes order of m. And if m is typically, let us say for DES, it comes to something like 2 to the power 56. I can scale up to, 2 to the power, m comes to 56 because the key space is 56 bits. So I have got 2 to the power 56 many keys. Even if I take 64, then m comes to, if the key space is 64 bit, I have got 2 to the power 64. So m comes to 64, so which is 2 to the power 6. These are all very realistic computation. It is almost constant time computation. So I can do that, provided that I can do a huge computation once and I can store a huge thing. So on the other hand, suppose I don't have any memory, but I have got huge computation, then how was suppose I have got a huge memory, sorry, I have got huge computation and I don't have memory, then what I can do? What I can do is that I can, in fact, in the online phase itself, I can run over all the keys. Suppose I can do 2 to the power m computation in the online phase, which is of course not realistic. I mean, like for large keys, I mean, like for m equal to 128 or something more than 80 or like that. But let us see, suppose I can do that, then I will put x0 inside, I will get y0 and do this whole process in the online phase, and I don't have to store anything in the memory. Once I get the key, once I get a match, I know that I have got it. So I have got two extremes that I have got. If I say that I have got a online time complexity T and memory complexity M, so I can build algorithms that will need memory and one-time computation of 2 to the power m, that is the key size, and then time complexity is essentially 1, that is essentially constant. On the other hand, I can develop algorithms for which I need huge computation, but then I don't need memory. I can do it with constant memory. So I have got these two extremes over here. And both of these things may be unrealistic. Now, if you see, if m is 64, even if m is 64, well, it might not be very realistic, very unrealistic right now, but still gathering up memory of 2 to the power 64 is very difficult. Gathering up a speed of 2 to the power 64, running time, scaling up to running time 2 to the power 64 is also very difficult. So it's difficult. Now, what Martin Hellman found out, and that was his genius, that I can actually develop a system based on this exhaustive search attack so that I can strike a trade-off, and I can store something, forget something, and I can, in the online phase, I can do some computation on the online phase to retrieve the key, to catch the key some way. So that is what Martin Hellman found out, and that is the technique that I would like to discuss during this lecture. All right, so these are the extreme situations. Now, well, Hellman did something like this. I will come to the tables, but let us look at this. So first assumption that Hellman made is that the key space, plaintext space, ciphertext space, all are of equal size. What happens if they are not? How to handle that? We can figure out later. So all are f2 raised to the power n. And therefore, if you have this cipher, so you have the cipher, you have block cipher. This is the block cipher. E is the block cipher. So it is key dependent and also the plaintext dependent. And we have Y over here. What I do is something like this. I know that it's a chosen plaintext attack. So I have got my chosen plaintext like this. I can take it anything. And then I can keep on choosing the keys. So if I choose a key and if I write it as x10, so it is the it is playing the part of the key. It is indeed the key. Plain text is here, so I have inverted the, I have not rotated the whole thing, and then the block cipher will evaluate this and give me a ciphertext. Now this is why, but I have already assumed that after all these things, C, K, and P all are equal. They are the same space. They are the same space. Therefore, the ciphertext that we are getting can be assumed or as a key. So we can take it as a key and run it again and keep the plain text same because that is the chosen plain text and go forward. So this is a kind of chaining that Martin Hellman visualized. And so if we fix the plain text x0, then we can keep that argument for key fixed and fix a function. Let us call that f, and fix a function. So this f is essentially e when I fix the plain text x0, and I'll get something. Now what he told that you can actually keep on doing this process over and over again. Now the question anyone will ask that how many times? Now we will answer those questions slowly. So let us see what happens that if you do this over and over again. Yeah, we will get something like this. If I do this over and over again. All right. Now see, so I say that capital N is 2 to the power n, and I have this block cipher. And as I explained in the previous slides, I'm going to construct a function like this, and then I pick a string of length n from f to n, a set of all strings of length n, apply this guy over it, I'll get, and whatever I get, I call it x11, and then consider it as a key, as a key, and apply f again, I get this. And I keep on going like this up to a certain number of times, which is capital T. I do it. Now I am not telling that, I mean, like why, like how many things, how many times I'll do that. Now just let us say I do a certain number of times, as many times as I wish to, and then after that I leave that chain. So I quit this chain. So let us suppose that I do it arbitrarily. I just quit this chain, take up another point at random, and then do the same process see many times, and then I leave it here again. Then I keep on doing this. So this is a simple idea. I mean, like well, simple within quotes. Sandy, I do that. And then what do I do? So let us come to the next step. Well, I'll use this slide to explain what I do after that. This is enough. Yeah. So I create a thing like this, but I don't use so much memory. What I do is that I start with this thing. I keep on doing this. I keep on hopping and come here. And then I remember only these 2 points and forget everything else. That is possible. I do that. So I remember only x10 and x1t and nothing else. In fact, I may as well, I would rather to coordinate with my, to be in the same page with my previous slides, what next slide, following slides. So what I do is that instead of this thing, I will say this. The argument is that anyway, I have chosen this. And so I don't take this. I take this thing, which comes out of my cipher. And then I compute up to this point. I store these two things in a table. I do something like this, then do the same process here, and I store x20 and x21 and x2t. I store these two things, and like that. So the storage decreases. So what will happen is that here we require storage of size mt, because I have got m rows and t columns, so I have got mt. Here I can just say m, because I have got m rows and I don't have t. It's just 2 into m. So in a way, I can say that it is twice m, which I can write as order of m, and I can even just write it as a m, because it's m into a small constant too. It is not something big. So I can do that. Now what happens in the online phase. So I can actually explain the attack within this particular slide, and then move on to see what are the mechanisms, the specialized mechanisms that Martin Hellman uses. So now I know that I have forgotten this part. I don't like this. Wait a moment, undo. So let me be careful here, and probably, since I'm forgetting, let me choose the color red. So that means that this is the no, I mean, I'm not allowed to go here. I have forgotten this. I have cut this out from my memory. So my memory is not empty. My memory is not empty, although I have done empty computation, because anyway I have to do all these things, but that's one-time computation. My memory is not empty. My memory is just m into 2, and following the usual m into 2 into whatever. So 2 into, you may say that I'm exactly, if you want the number of bits, so we can exactly count the number of bits. So possibly 2 into 64 into m or something like that. So I will say that this is my memory, and following the tradition of computer science, I will say that this memory is only m. Okay, and now I have the same block cipher. I don't use red anymore. So again, I come back to blue. So I have the same block cipher. So I know that I can give x0 over here as the input, and I can give, and I know what I get. Of course, I don't know what is the key. Let us call it K0. But what I can do is that I take this Y0 and take it over here and search this. I search this, and let us suppose that I have sorted this table. So I do a search on a sorted table. So it's very fast. So it can be done essentially in constant time. And therefore, I search this, and suppose I have got a hit. Suppose that for argument's sake, I've got a hit over here. Let us suppose I find that this thing is equal to Y0. What does it mean? Well, I don't know. I don't know the key, because what is the key? This element is the key. But unfortunately, I have forgotten this element, because I chose to forget this. I chose to forget this because I cannot keep that much memory. But then I'll say that, okay, what Hellman says, that okay, you have forgotten this, but you have not forgotten this. So since you have not forgotten this, you know that this number is 2, and also you know this element. Now I can again do the processing t minus 1 times, or rather I messed up a little, because I am actually remembering this. So I can probably erase this and just be clear about what I have forgotten and what I have not forgotten. So what I say is something like this: change the color. Okay, so see, I mean, like, what I wanted to say, that I have forgotten this portion. All right, so I don't know this. All right, so that's all. So now I change the color. All right, so see, this I've also forgotten this. So I've only remembered this. So now what we know this. Now if I apply this t minus 2 times, then I will come over here, which is actually the key. So I can essentially retrieve the key. The key is x2 t minus 1. So I have got it. I have got the key. But where is the catch here? The catch here is that, of course, this y0 may not be here. Then the question is, what do I do? In order to see that, let me again remove these lines and then discuss that case. So suppose I have not found y0. And definitely I have forgotten this portion. Oh, it should be in red. Definitely I have forgotten this portion, and y0 doesn't exist here. Then what Hellman says is that apply f on, no, not red f, it should be blue f. So apply f on y0. All right, this step explains how the whole thing is generalized. So if we apply this and then search for this string in the last column, search for this. If you get it, then suppose again I get it here, then that means I go back here and apply f on this thing t minus 3 times. The first time I applied t minus 1 times, now I applied t minus 3. Sorry, first time I applied how many times? Like, you have to check that anyway, 1 less time. So here I am getting, how many times I have applied f over here? So 1, so I have t times I have applied here. So here I have applied t minus 1 times. So first time I have to apply t minus 2 times to get this thing. And to get this thing, come to something in between. I mean, like, I don't know this. I don't know this, t2 t minus 1, but I have to retrieve t2 t minus 2. So I have to come over here, because then I know that what I got is this one. Since what I got is this one, that is why when I applied f, I got this one. This is equal. So my key is one previous to that. So that is the idea. Now, if I do this, then I'll get the key. Now, it would have been wonderful if this worked in a way in totality. I mean that suppose I could manage to do a table like this and cover all the keys. So number of elements in this table is m into t, and number of keys is capital N. Suppose I could do that, then I would have been able to get all the keys. But the problem is that there is a randomness over here. I am choosing randomly one element from the key space or whatever in the plain text space and developing this chain. So ultimately, there is no guarantee that I can get it. But let us say that what happens is that by using Barthe paradox, Hellman showed that I will keep on getting, in this process, I will keep on getting distinct keys in this table if mt square is less than or equal to capital N. So this is a very important inequality that Hellman proved, and later on it is also mentioned in all the papers, particularly in Birukov and Shamir's paper in time memory data trade-off. So this is by using Barthe paradox. I mean, we cannot discuss that right now. So that means that I can, even if I use the best possible method, this mt is going to be capital N by t. So that is, I can cover 1/10 many keys like this, and suppose I am doing randomly. So in this process, my probability of success will be 1 by t. Okay, because this is the number of keys that I am able to do it. Now here, after that, what Hellman did, and which is in later on, much later, about 20 years later, Shamir calls it a genius. I mean, like a great brilliance of. I mean, I'm not. I'm forgetting the exact word. I mean, like, but he mentions Martin Hellman's work there in the for time memory data trade-off. So what Hellman said is that you can beat Barthe paradox in a certain way, and that is where is the trick. What he says is that you can make a table, then you can forget the middle part, that is all right. But then what we can do is that I can change this function f. So if I change this function by using a permutation of the coordinates, let us call it hj. So what I do is that I once run over all the keys, all empty many keys by using my original function. I use the original function. Then I just simply take f and use a random permutation to permute the coordinates. I construct another function and do the same thing. What Hellman showed that it's very unlikely to get a collision with the previous table, and in that way I can prepare t many tables, and if I do that, then I will come with something like this. So I will get a list of a set of tables, some t many tables, and then I will have to do the same process with all these tables. The process that I told, I did it with one table, and I more or less gave an intuitive feeling that I should be successful with probability 1 by t, and now I claim that if I change a little that function by permuting the coordinates, I can generate t minus 1 many tables like this. And then if I do the same process over and over again, t times, the expectation is 1 by t into t, that is 1, that is, I will get a hit. The expected number of hits that I will get is 1, and that is maximum, we can say. So with a very high probability, we will be able to get the key. I will take just another 5 minutes. After this, Hellman did an analysis of the time, memory, and all that, and came up with something like this. So I'll come to the final expression. Yeah, so this is something that we have. So the memory requirement is empty. Why? Because each table, I told that memory required for one table is m. I am making t tables, so it is empty. Now, pre-computation is n, unfortunately, that is the total number, that is 2 to the power n. That's huge. So I assume that I can do this much pre-computation. That is one-time computation. And this is the number of keys. I know that I can achieve this trade-off, that is this value, that mt square is n, that is the optimal. And this is online phase computation. Here the searching is constant time, so we don't talk about searching. What we do is that we say that searching is online one time, but once I have got a key, I have to do some kind of computation in the online phase, and that amount is t, because each time I have to apply f over and over again. So each time ultimately we will end up operating f t times, and I have to do it for t many tables. So I have got t into t, that is equal to t square. So I have got these two things. And now if I do a very standard algebra, I will not say straightforward, because although this looks straightforward, but I don't think that these things can be thought of in, I mean, I've got all respect for people who can do these things. Okay, so I just do this, not just, I do this, and I get a thing like this. I get t m square equal to m square, n square. What does it mean? This means that it gives me a trade-off. So this is where I can, here I know that m is equal to mt. So I can, and capital T equal to t square. So what I can do is that I can tweak these values to bring m and t at certain values which are accessible with my machines. But I know that I have to always satisfy this curve or equation. So it is called the trade-off curve, the time memory trade-off curve. We will call it Hellman's time memory trade-off curve. So this is what Martin Hellman achieved. I have got some questions over here, that if instead of neglecting the number of bits that are stored in the tables and the searching, the searching that is required on the table, instead of calling them constant time, if I am very fussy, and if I keep on writing these things here I may be wrong, because I've been doing some very elementary calculations, and what I find is that if you kind of say that, okay, after all, you will have some kind of bits, so you are not only storing the pointers, but you are having some bits and all that, and you are storing some bits and all that, and kind of all these things. And if I say that, okay, the time for time, I can take into account the time to start and all these things, then I get a slightly different version of time memory trade-off. And it looks like, if I'm correct, it is something like this. So I have a factor like this. And what I suspect is that if we are talking about lightweight ciphers where the key size is small, and then this curve may be giving us a better picture, I mean, like a more accurate picture than that. But I have absolutely no reason to believe that this is anything original, because I don't think that I have got sufficient evidence that Martin Hellman, Birukov, Shamir, they of course know these things, but like these are not very explicit, so we can explicitly told. So probably time memory trade-off is not dead. In the, I mean, when the number of the key size is small, and when t is small or t is large, or in very extreme situations, we might be having slightly different trade-offs, which might be interesting from time to time. So with this, I'll stop my lecture, and thank you for listening, and please ask me questions.
So any question from the audience? Any question from the audience? So anyway, Sugata, so we are virtually listening to your talk. One person is there in your house. He was physically listening to your presentation.
Yes.
He's Aditi.
Yes.
He's Aditi your daughter?
No, it's Aditi, not my daughter. So.
Okay. So one question is there. Which attack model is stronger attack model? Only cybertext only attack, plain text only attack, chosen cybertext plain text, and chosen plain text cybertext attack. Which one is the strongest?
No, Devashish, the point is that what I mean, I get confused with what is strong and what is weak, because if you I mean, the cipher is strongest when it can withstand the chosen plain text attack or anything more. I mean, like even if it can withstand this new attacks like side channel attacks and all that. But the attack is, I mean, like the point is that more the best attack one would like to have is a ciphertext only attack, but you cannot do that most of the time. So I mean, almost all the time, and that's not actually right now in reality. It is not very. I mean, ciphertext only attack. I mean, like who is talking about ciphertext only attack? And it's usually not possible. And it is not also important because we will be it's quite natural that we will be at least knowing many plain text ciphertext pairs, and it is also very natural that we will be able to push in plain text of our choice and get this corresponding ciphertext. But not only that, nowadays, as we know, that it is natural that the attacker will be having access to the encrypting device or the decrypting device so that he can actually tamper with that. He can have a view of the memory and all that. Yeah. So
okay, so one question from the audience: how to determine the value of T?
yeah, the value of T has to be determined based on the memory availability and computational power availability and all that, because online phase computation is order of T square. So we have to check that how much computation I can do in the online phase, and the memory requirement is MT. So I have to check that how much memory I have and how much memory I can access in the online phase, and how much memory, how much storage I have, and then we know that MT square has to be equal to N square. So that trade-off curve. So then it has to satisfy that trade-off curve, and I can move on the trade-off curve.
Okay. And another question is that Jagannath Shetty has asked, can chaotic maps will be used for generating PRGS, that is pseudo-random generator, which will be used as key?
Actually, I think that this is a little bit, I mean, of course you can use, I mean, like for example, one can, I mean, like we have been working on generating these tables, and what we found that if you generate these tables, I mean, it's a question that how many keys are going to be covered by the tables. So it's not always as it is written in the papers, of course, and it's not that the authors didn't know. Of course, you don't write everything in a paper, but there are scope of improving this table generation. And of course, it depends, these collisions depend on the choice of T. If you have very small value of T or medium value of T or large value of T, things are going to change from time to time.
So thank you, Sugadata, for your nice presentations, and I think it will be very much helpful to our student as well as research scholar and our research community also. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Devashish, and it's a pleasure for me to talk to somewhere, you know, as I told, I'm connected to Calcutta, so it's a wonderful to be able to talk to a gathering which is organized around Calcutta. So thank you very much.
Dipannita here. So it's
hello.
hello, very
Hello.
nice, very nice. I think students will be really benefited, particularly
Thank you.
because
Thank you very much.
and what Devashish was asking, actually it is not the plain text, ciphertext. Actually, how practical the attack is. For that we require time memory trade-off. So
yeah,
any type of attack, we cannot tell that this is plain text only or ciphertext only, or so I think it's a very good topic and it's required actually.
Actually, what we see is that, like to continue what Professor Rai Chaudhuri just now said, what we see is that, I mean, if you are designing a cipher, and particularly when people are talking about lightweight ciphers now, so immediately after designing, I mean, the time memory trade-off or time memory data trade-off attacks are a generic attack. So one has to run the cipher through those attacks and see the parameters, that how the parameters are behaving. So after that, with specialized knowledge of the circuits and all that, then people talk about other attacks. So if you look at Grain family, like Grain version 1, so the first attack is a time memory data trade-off attack. So like that. So always, and we have got a attack on time memory data trade-off attack on Lizard and other ciphers. So Nishant and I, and with whom I republished that and some other things. So we have done on Grain family also, we have done those attacks. So these are the first bunch of attacks. You have to see them, and after that you go for the next level. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Shokata.
All right. Thank you.
Many years back, I have met to you in 2004. Probably we have met to you. 2004.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. It's very good to talk to you. Talk to you all. Yeah, and also it's wonderful to be having a word with Professor Rajoudhuri.
Yes.
After a long time.
After a long time, actually, I met you, but online. Okay.
Yeah, wish we can meet
Yes.
face to face very soon,
Yes,
and wish you will be visiting here, and I get opportunity to visit IIT Kharagpur. And
you also, we expect that sometime that after this our back time we'll go and we'll meet you at Kharagpur.
yeah. All right, so I leave the meeting now, and thanks. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye.
Professor Rajoudhuri, oh no, I'm not leaving you because it's now your talk. Of course, I'm listening to your talk. Sorry,
Yes.
I thought it's over.
No, actually, it's a long time.
Okay, so I will close my video and then I'll listen to your talk.
Okay.
Bye bye. Yeah.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
So, now our next speaker is Dipanetara Chaudhary. He did his PhD from IT Department of Computer Science and Engineering. He is also the head of the department, and he is also chairman. And her research area is cryptography, cellular automata, error correction coding, and she has published more than 150 international journal and conference papers in the proceedings. And now our talk is on Shannon's theory and of modern ciphers. Madam, you are welcome to present your start your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Devashish, for introducing me. Is it the slides are visible?
Sure. I know you are very busy. Still, I request a lot. So I am thankful to you. You are here and going to present your presentation.
So the slide is coming, Devashish?
No. It is not coming.
It's not coming. Okay, just a minute. Is it coming now? Devashish?
No, madam, it is not. No, it is not coming, madam.
Okay, then I'm refreshing that thing. Just a minute.
Share
I'm sharing the screen. I'm sharing the screen. Okay. Is it coming? Is it coming now?
Yes, it is coming.
It is okay. It is coming.
Yes,
madam.
yes. Okay.
It is coming.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Just click the slide.
So, good evening, all the participants. I think it is very late. I'll be discussing again a very basic concept of cryptography and security. I should tell that security. Okay. This is Shannon's theory, and mainly that why Shannon's theory is very important in the design of modern ciphers. Today, I'll try to explain that thing. Okay, so outline of my talk is first, very briefly, I should tell the classical cryptography before Shannon, and then Shannon's theory of a secrecy system, then theoretical and practical security, and Shannon's product ciphers, and how actually that influence the modern crypto systems like DES and AES, and finally I'll conclude. So classical cryptography before Shannon, all of we know, I want to mention because everyone knows here that it broadly falls under two categories, the substitution and the transposition. Because nowadays that everything is substitution permutation network. So is earlier that classical ciphers that mainly it was substitution cipher. All of you know that is a cipher. Then another is the transposition cipher. What nowadays mainly we call the permutation.
Display is not coming, it is freezed.
Madam,
Please reshare it, ma'am. It is not coming, it is freezed.
Devashish, is there any problem? Some disturbance is coming.
Your slide is not.
Hello?
Your slide is not coming.
Ma'am, your slide is not visible, ma'am. It is freezed. Please reshare it, ma'am.
Slide asked stop. It is sharing.
Please stop sharing and reshare it.
Okay, okay.
Madam,
Okay, I'm doing again.
Madam. Yes.
No, just a minute. Is it coming now? Hello?
First you open the slide that you want to display and then you click on the share.
Screen share screen. Share screen আছে ওর এটাকে তো মনে ওখান থেকে ওপেন করো
স্ক্রিন করো শেয়ার
আমার তো স্ক্রিন এখানে করব
শেয়ার এই যে এখানে নাও
সেটাই তো করা ছিল আমি
Yes, ma'am, it is coming now.
Coming?
Just make it slideshow
Coming?
view, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Slideshow view. Put it in slideshow view, ma'am.
Okay. So
Yes, ma'am. It is full available. Yes,
okay,
ma'am,
fine.
please continue.
Thank you. So mainly the classical techniques, all of we know the substitution and transposition earlier. Substitution is like Caesar cipher, and there are some transposition ciphers. Now we know the Caesar cipher. All of we know that mainly the alphabets are that replace each letter of the alphabet with the letter, and there are variety of. And this is one example, like any Happy New Year that we can give. That if it is a 3 letters next, then H will be replaced by K, A is by D, like that. And there are many variety of this substitution cipher. Okay. And later, earlier when it was actually proposed, it was a art, not the mathematics or science was involved. Mainly this is that one alphabet replaced by another alphabet. But later, that actually the modulo function is used for this Caesar cipher. And we know that if we assign A to Z 1 to 26, and then cipher text C is equal to P plus K minus 1 modulo 26 plus 1. This K is the key. Actually, this is the security parameter, and nowadays, this security is actually nothing but how secure this key is. So mainly today I will be discussing that what do we mean by security and how is actually it is introduced, or whether we can quantify this thing. Okay, so these are the classical cryptography. And these are the different variety of cipher. So I'm not telling this monoalphabetic cipher, polyalphabetic cipher. And there are some attacks also. Okay? So these are relative frequency analysis attack. Though it is monoalphabetic, that see this is there can be these many 26 factorial or 4 into 10 to the power 26 possible keys, but there are very nice attack, this relative frequency analysis, that it was actually attacked. And again another is polyalphabetic cipher. Okay. Now the drawback is, say this polyalphabetic cipher again use different monoalphabetic substitution as we proceed through the plain text message. Okay. And obviously it is better than normal Caesar or monoalphabetic, but still there are drawbacks. Okay. The key and the plain text share the same frequency distribution of letters. So mainly that relative frequency that actually exploited this thing. So it was some weakness is already there. Now transposition cipher. What I mentioned that transposition is nothing but what today we tell that permutation. Okay. So these are the actually the classicals. When it was classical cipher before Shannon, this was a transposition. Like just I give you example that we are attending one webinar at MAKAUT. Then we just arrange the thing in a two-dimensional manner that we are attending one webinar and then column wise we read. So that means we arrange row wise and then read column wise. And then again we can give some ordering of reading. So this 4, 3, 1, 2, 5, 6, 7. Not it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then we can read one first. So C A N E R U. Then second column R D W A T, like that. So these are the different techniques, and there are many other classical ciphers earlier were there. So ciphertext has the same letter and frequency as the original plain text. So even the problem remains whether it is substitution or whether it is the transposition. So classical ciphers, that problem is there. Now, so the question is, that means the what type of function, because what type of function, or earlier say we have used some technique, what I was telling, Caesar cipher. Later we use that some Hill cipher, where the first time the matrix multiplication was used, or I should tell the mathematics has come into picture. So some function we can use. Then how can we tell that whether it is secure or not? So what do we mean by security? So just to understand that thing, so Shannon's theory of secrecy system, today I try to discuss. Again, this is one mathematical theory of communication published in 1948, means almost 70 years, more than 70 years ago. And the main claim is all sources of data have a rate and all channels have a capacity. If the capacity is greater than the rate, transmission with no errors is possible. See, this is actually mathematical theory of communication, and what we are telling that from the communication point of view, that if the capacity of channel is greater than rate, transmission with no errors is possible. And this introduce concept of entropy of a random variable or process. So these are the main two things that actually later is used in security. We'll see how. Now, at that time, what was the definition of a crypto system? So classical, I'm telling you. So crypto system can be viewed as a distribution of plain text and a set of ciphertext and distribution of possible keys. Just now we have seen the Caesar cipher. So that ciphertext is produced or generated from the plain text, some function of plain text and key. And an encoding transformation, that means the encryption function later iterated, and the inverse, that means the decryption. So overall, this was the concept in classical things. And now this, we know the modern variations, that all of we know that if Bob Alice, they want to talk privately or confidentially, then the confidentiality, then authentication and non-repudiation. These are the three things that we must maintain. Now, and data integrity obviously must be there, otherwise there can be, or we cannot tell that whether some attack has been there or and see, these are the very simple way if I define the cryptography algorithms. So is hello. Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. The noise has been stopped.
Okay.
Please continue, ma'am.
ম্যাডাম বলুন
Okay.
হ্যাঁ ম্যাডাম বলুন
Okay, fine. So this is all of we know that this key with this key the plain text is encrypted and ciphertext. So all of we know this thing, and the attacker or the third party wants to attack or analyze the crypto systems. So normally earlier we used to know that there are two types of attacks: algebraic attacks and statistical attacks. So today's the first lecture, what the Vetlanikova, she nicely presented again that nowadays the side channel attacks is another things. So these are the different type of attacks. So now we have that type of background is also there. Now Shannon in 1948 paper, he published this information theory paper actually. What is the basic or of the today's secure system, and what actually transformed cryptography from art to science. So before Shannon, the classical cipher actually were the Caesar or the that's why I have shown the transposition, because that was the art, that mainly arrangement and again how to take row-wise arranging and reading column-wise. So this is a technique or art. So later, after Shannon's theorem, actually this becomes a science, or I should tell the mathematics. So what is the main contribution? So notions of theoretical security and practical security. So this is from Shannon's theory. First, the security concept comes into picture. When can I tell that when one function or one that this transfer function is secure? Because I can always make some y equal to fx some function. So is any function is secure? Obviously no. So observation that the secret is all in the key. This is another observation, and not in the algorithm. Because earlier, and this actually there are many years this concept was there, and that's why even nowadays people also do some closed door algorithm nowadays also, but the concept is very wrong, and because the actual secrecy lies in the key. Then product ciphers and mixing. So mixing transformation, this is one of the most important contribution that actually proposed by Shannon, and inspiration for this actually motivating by this idea, or I should tell that mainly this concept has been exploited in designing the modern day system DES and AES. And this is another thing that it is proved that Bardam cipher or one-time pad was theoretically secure. So what is theoretically secure? Mainly what do we mean by security? First, this is the basic question, and then theoretical security, practical security, and finally that from the product cipher, that how actually this today's or modern cipher were designed. Okay, so we start from theoretical and practical security. So theoretically secure crypto system cannot be broken even by an all-powerful adversary. Theoretically secure. Practically secure, so require a large amount of work. Work means what? So just now the Professor Gangopadhyay, the previous lecture nicely explained the data memory trade-off. That means that either you need memory space or you need time. That means what is the complexity of your attack. So this is the large amount of work to solve. I think that very nicely, and the basic thing Professor Gangopadhyay has explained in his lecture, the last lecture. Now, bad news is the only theoretically secure crypto system is the one-time pad. I'll be telling what is one-time pad. The only practically secure crypto system is the one-time pad. But one-time pad we cannot use in practical application. So Shannon's theory that in 1949, I mentioned that in Bell Systems Technical Journal, it was produced in Communication Theory of Secrecy System. This is 1949, after 1 year, that 1948 first this communication theory, and then again communication theory of secrecy systems. So there are two issues. What is the concept of perfect secrecy? This is actually today we'll be telling. And does there any crypto system provide perfect secrecy? It is possible when a key is used for only one encryption. Okay, we'll see that thing. And how to evaluate a crypto system when many plain texts are encrypted using the same key. So here the first question is that perfect secrecy, yes, we can achieve if a key is used for only one encryption. So obviously we, from our common sense, we understand this is very costly, very, very costly. One-time patch is the example. Then if we don't use one key, if you use a one key for encrypting a group of plain text, a number of plain text, then how is the or where is the security lies? How? That we should see. Now, Shannon's 1949 paper, it approaches to evaluate the security of crypto systems. So this is the first thing that where actually the concept of security comes. So one is the computational security, then provable security, and unconditional security. Okay. So first we see computational security. So concerns the computational effort required to break a crypto system, because security means the one crypto system, given a crypto system, that means already someone has designed, and then that what computational effort is required to break that system. That is computational security. That is a measure. So one thing you notice, so first that Shannon tried to give that what effort is required, that is the computational effort required to break, and that will be the measure. So definition is very simple. A crypto system is said to be computationally secure if the best algorithm for breaking it requires at least n operations, where n is some specified very large number. Operations can be multiplication. See again, if all of you have attended the first lecture, every time she was telling that multiplication, how to do the multiplication. So these operations can be, this can be, I'm giving examples, and there can be many such operations. And this secure, it is at least an operation where n is some specified very large number. Okay. So this is compute. And what large number? So that today's computational resource, what is available in current day, even this n is that large, is a large number. So we cannot able to break the system. And that gives you the computational security measure. So no known crypto system can be proved to be secure because infinite resource I can give you that computational as if. So problem is no known crypto system can be proved to be secure. If you give infinite computational resource, computing power, then we cannot tell that it is secure computationally. So specific attack like exhaustive key search. See, if already you have read, say DES. So DES algorithm is very good. Current modern day I am telling. So it is 64-bit. That's why it is exhaustive attack has been done. But algorithm has no weakness. Algorithm has no weakness. So because enough computing power. But when DES was proposed, that time it was not broken. It was secured. So exhaustive key search, we can do that thing. Then provable security. So crypto system is said to be provably secure if the security of the system can be reduced to some well-studied problem that is considered to be difficult. Okay. So given crypto system is secure if a given integer n cannot be factored. All of we know a large number, the factoring problem is a hard problem. So if some crypto system or that problem I can map there, then I can tell that, okay, this is provably secure, but this is a relative, not an absolute proof. Okay. Then unconditional security. So crypto system is said to be unconditionally secure if it cannot be broken, even with infinite computational resources. So it cannot be studied from the point of view of computational complexity, as we allow computation time is infinite, can be studied with probability theory. See, now that we'll see that how secure it is, and that Shannon introduced, or very simple probability theory that he used or exploited to define the secrecy of crypto system. So this is the beginning of the modern crypto system, or the era of the modern crypto system. So one-time pad is unconditional security. This is by Varnam in 1917. It was proposed, and use a random key that was truly as long as the message. See, very simple. This is plain text P, ciphertext C, K, and this is a n-bit binary number Z to X. We represent X1 to Xn. This is n-bit binary. Every value can be 0 or 1. And say K is again n-bit key K. Now this thing is so simple that encryption function or the is given by x1 plus k1, x2 plus k2, bit by bit, that mod 2. This simple thing we can use for one-time pad, or we call the Varnam cipher. So y equal to y1, y2, yn, and for the decryption, again, since it is a XOR, because it is a plus is same because it is binary. So y1 plus k1, y2 plus k2, yn plus kn mod 2. And I'll be getting the so simple thing, but it is secure. Then problem, what is the problem? See, the example is one-time pad. So given ciphertext with binary cipher. Since we are discussing about the security, so first we see whether we can break, albeit because we have defined like that. Okay, so see, this is my ciphertext. This is one ciphertext is given, and decrypt by hacker 1. See, this is simple XOR, simple XOR. So this is CT, means ciphertext. Ciphertext is given, this one, and see, key can be any key. It's a random. So one key, it is given random this value, and these are XOR. How it is XOR? Because A to Z, some 1 to 26 value you assume, and so in this way we can give it. We can represent this thing as a 0 and 1 because it is a finally, and then it is XOR. This x1 plus k1 modulo 2. And this is, I get the plain text, like with this key, we get that Mr. Mustard with the candlestick in the hall. Okay? Because key can be a random key, any key. So this is one key. Now see, the same ciphertext I take, same ciphertext. And key can be random. So another person take this key. And because it is simple XOR, so this is plain text is Miss Scarlett with the knife in the library. So now you see, if you can take a different key because it is random with the same ciphertext, I could get some understandable, meaningful plain text. So which one is correct? Which one? It's a big problem. Okay. No problem with one-time. So truly random key with arbitrary length, because only this problem can be solved if this key is fixed. I cannot change. This is random. Because many other are possible. Many other different keys are possible so that I get a meaningful plain text. Okay. So truly random key with arbitrary length, and this distribution and protection of long keys. So these are the problem with one-time pad. And the key has the same length as the plain text. Just now we have seen. So if it's a long message, then you need that same length long key, which is very costly because finally you have to communicate. So one-time pad was thought to be unbreakable, but there was no mathematical proof until Shannon developed the concept of perfect secrecy 30 years later. Now we tell one-time pad is unbreakable. One-time pad is secure. See, remember one, I also told that theoretically secure, practically secure, but only Shannon developed that only using Shannon's theory that we can tell that after 30 years, that is also after 30 years. Okay. So how important this thing is? So perfect secrecy. So when we discuss the security of a crypto system, we should specify the type of attack that is being considered. We know ciphertext only attack, and unconditional security assumes infinite computational time. We remember these are the things. And theory of computational complexity is X, and we need, but this is, we cannot use, but we use probability theory. So tick, this is a tick, probability theory. Now perfect secrecy. See how, very simple concept that what actually, but that is the Shannon's theory that on the probability theory. So definition is a crypto system has perfect secrecy if probability of X given Y equal to probability of X. For all X belongs to the plain text P, Y belongs to C. See, what is, this is all of we know the from probability theory. This is conditional probability, probability of X given Y. This is my conditional probability and probability of X. So if these are equal, then I can tell it is perfectly secure. So what do we mean by this thing? You see what actually our from probability theory, what is the physical meaning of this thing? And this is perfect secrecy. This simple thing is the perfect secrecy. So idea is, see, now we try to map this simple probability theory into our crypto system. See, Oscar can obtain no information. See, Alice is communicating with Bob, and Oscar is the attacker or the third party trying to probe the communication channel. Now, Oscar can obtain no information about the plain text by observing the ciphertext. Say, if X is the plain text, X belongs to P. Y is the ciphertext, Y belongs to C. That it is a set of plain text, set of ciphertext is capital C. Now, probability of X given Y, that means for this small x, small y is the ciphertext. X is the plain text and this is ciphertext. That means this probability that X is the plain text for this ciphertext Y, if that is same as that of probability X, same as that of probability X, then Oscar has no clue. That means the plain text, this plain text, that means is being sent, the probability of that is, because that is the probability of the plain text is being sent. Okay. And see if this is same as that a probability of plain text for this ciphertext, because finally ciphertext is being communicated. So if this is same, then Oscar has no clue. Oscar has no clue because this is same as that of the probability of plain text being sent. Okay. So quickly, I think, just recapitulate, because I think all of we know this simple thing. Quickly, I think, because we require this simple probability theory. So discrete random variables X consists of a finite set and a probability distribution defined on X. So the probability that the random variable X takes on the value X is denoted as probability of X equal to X. That means the one plain text, and this is a set of plain text. I'm telling in with respect to our crypto system, and this is we call normally probability of X. Okay, and we know that if we consider that all the plain text, that means all the full set, if it is normal probability, we know that sigma probability of X equal to 1. That means, and 0 less than equal to probability X for all X greater than belongs to X. Okay, that means probability of X is greater than equal to 0. Now, what is discrete random variable? I'll just give examples so that easily always we use this term. So consider a coin toss, and all of we know either it is head and tail, since there are two values. So probability of head equal to probability of tail is half. Okay. Now throw a pair of dice. Slightly, I'm telling now dice is, it has 6 faces, 1 to 6, and I take 2. Throw a pair. It is modeled by that 1 1 1 2. That means in first one it comes 1, second one it appears 1, like this. So there can be 36 options or 36, I should tell, events, that 1 1 1 2 1 6, like that, 6 into 6. So probability of ij is 1 by 36. Now if I consider this pair of dice and the number that appears on both the dice, if the sum, I consider the sum. So if sum equal to 4, then how many different events actually gives the sum equal to 4? It can be 1 3. That means for first dice it is 1, second dice it is 3, both the dice 2 2 2, and it is 3 and 1. So there are the 3 events that gives the result that sum of the numbers of 2 dice is 4. So what will be the probability? 3 by 36. Because 3 events, 3 such cases, and 36 such here possible ways. So 3 by 36. Now joint and conditional probability. So X and Y are random variables defined on finite set X and Y. So we know that joint probability is probability of XY is the X equal to X and Y. See, this is very important because I have 2 parameters. I have plain text, I have ciphertext. Now just parallelly, now we try to map that this X is plain text and Y is ciphertext. Capital X is my set of plain text, capital Y is my set of possible ciphertext. And just parallelly we start to map. Then the conditional probability of X given Y is the probability that X equal to X given Y equal to Y. See, already I mentioned, easily I can map this thing, that probability of this plain text or this given ciphertext, because we know that for a plain text and that key is, now I have not yet introduced the key. So if for a fixed key that, and for a fixed encryption function, that plain text generates a fixed ciphertext. So start thinking and mapping this simple probability theory to your crypto system, where X is the plain text, Y is the ciphertext. So probability of XY, joint probability, is probability of X given Y, conditional probability, into probability of Y, and equal to, we know the probability of Y given X is probability of X. All of we probably now you know the Bayes theorem will be coming into picture, because from this only from these here, the base theorem, we know that we get the base theorem from here. So if probability of y greater than 0, if probability of y greater than 0, because it is in the denominator. So probability of x given y, the conditional probability will be the probability of x just from the previous joint definition of this thing, this previous equation, that probability of x given y is probability of x into probability of y given x and probability of y divided by probability of y. So this is the base theorem. So example is that let x denote the sum of two dice. I gave the example. Now we see y is a random variable on Dn. What is D? D is the, if the two dice are the same. If D is the event when the two dice are showing the same number. Okay. Then what will be probability of D given 4? That means it is, so I just put the formula, probability of 4 given D, probability of D and probability of 4. So what is probability of 4 given D? How many times it comes? Because there are 1 to 6 and 4 appears in both the dice, 4 appears only 1. So it is 1 by 6. And what is probability of D? Because there are, earlier we have seen, there are 36 such situation. And these, how many times it will come? 6 by 36, because I have only numbers 1 to 6. So this is 1 by, again 6 by 36 is 1 by 6. And probability of 4 is 3 by 36. Because we have seen that 4 comes in the sum of, because sum of the numbers appear in the two dice, the pair of dice. So it is 1, 3, 2, 2 and 3, 1, 3 events we have seen. So this is 1 by 3. So probability of D given for 1 by 3. Just I am showing a simple probability theory we can easily compute. So since we will now map to plaintext ciphertext, so we can also compute this thing. That means now if I can map the security measure, or we can use probability theory in computing or defining security, then actually some quantitative measurement of security we can define. So this is actually the Shannon first, not only the concept of security, but also some quantitative measurement of security that comes in, that came from the concept. Now we try to map with this simple base theorem. Simply, this is nothing but the base theorem. Okay. So definitions. We assume a crypto system PCKED. P is the set of plain text, set of ciphertext, set of key. Then E is the encryption function, D is the decryption function. And is specified, and a key is used for one encryption. So the key is the security parameter. So plain text is denoted by random variable X, and key is denoted by random variable K. Ciphertext is denoted by random variable Y. First thing is, see, I'm assuming, and this is a reasonable assumption that these are random variables, because the plain text, and actually there is no relation between key and X. Plain text is being sent. So there can be that in the source can have some predefined probability of sending the plain text. Okay. But this key, it is a random variable. So this is a reasonable assumption, or a reasonable assumption that these are random variables. And independent, random independent variables. Because X and K, it doesn't depend. Now ciphertext is denoted by random variable Y. See, I'm telling X and K are independent. I'm not telling Y, because that I have to prove, because Y is the function of X and K. So I cannot tell that Y is independent. But if Y can be independent, then problem is solved. Okay. So this plain text, ciphertext, again the same thing, X giving Y, and this is the key, K. Okay. Now perfect secrecy, again the same definition I'm giving. So a crypto system has perfect secrecy if probability of X given Y is probability X for all X. So idea again the same as we told. Now what is the relation among X, K and Y? Now just we'll be mapping on only that simple probability theory we are trying to map in our crypto system, where I have three random variables: X, plain text, key and ciphertext. So ciphertext is a function of X and K. All of we know that ciphertext, it will be the function of X. So probability of X, Y equal to Y, that means it is the probability of getting the ciphertext, is summation of the probability that this is the key set and probability that X equal to decay Y. Because see, when I'm considering the probability of getting a ciphertext, that given a ciphertext, that means given a ciphertext, if the decryption function is known, I know I can compute the X, the plain text. So that's why when I'm considering probability of Y, I'm giving the key K and probability of X, because Y is a function of key and the plain text. So K, see, this is the summation over all the key K, and Y belongs to CK. Y belongs, this is very important. This is very, very important, because the same key set, the key we are using, the set of keys, actually that this ciphertext, that it is the belongs that set of key, because ciphertext is generated by that set of key. This is, so why is the ciphertext given that X is the plain text? See, here only normal probability we can write. Now it is a conditional probability, because our is actually conditional. Because for one particular plain text, I get one ciphertext, or reverse. Given a ciphertext, I have to find out a plain text. Because remember, we have defined the secrecy, that what is the effort required or work effort required to break the system. So reverse we are seeing. So probability of Y given X, that means this is the ciphertext for this, when this is the plain text. Probability of Y given X. So this is nothing but probability of, this is the probability K equal to K. See, I can get this thing. That means K. That's why I told here it is Y belongs to the ciphertext for that particular set of key. Here X is the plain text when the decryption function we are using for that particular ciphertext Y. So this is my conditional probability I'm getting. Okay. So relation among X, K, Y. So X is the plain text. Now I map that probability of X given Y, because one is from encryption to decryption, and the same thing I can do from decryption to encryption. So here probability of X for given Y, then probability of X, or base theorem, probability of X, probability of Y given X, and probability of Y. So what is that thing? If this is probability of X equal to X, that means the one particular plain text. Then already we have seen just now this conditional probability when Y is the ciphertext for given plain text, that is nothing but the set of key. Because now see, this is from our knowledge also we can tell that for a particular key K, for a fixed key, that one plain text generates one ciphertext. So this actually is giving that. And now probability of similarly probability of y, that probability y we give that summation of probability k equal to k, and this x equal to dqy. Already we have defined all the things. So see, this is you see that this is nothing but that one crypto system, just we have mapped into some our normal base theorem, simple probability theory we have mapped. Now shift cipher as perfect secrecy. I take one example. Shift cipher as perfect secrecy. Caesar cipher. I told that it is normal, it is not secure, but see why you are telling. Shift cipher. So we know this works only on the alphabet set. That means A to Z. So 26. So P, C, K is Z26, cardinality is 26. So encryption is defined as EKX is X plus K mod 26. Here I have defined Caesar cipher. Now cipher text is probability of Y is probability of K equal to K and X equal to DKY. Just now we have mapped. What is that? Because probability of this is the K equal, because K can be again 1 to 26 and these are random. That's why the probability is 1 by 26. This is equiprobable. That means it's a random. So this is there are 26 alphabets. So key is 1 by 26 and probability is X equal to Y minus K. Okay? Because this is so 1 by 26 I can take out, and this is probability of X equal to Y minus K. Again, this probability of X equal to Y minus K, again that is 1 by 26 because this is summation of 1, this is 1, because this is 1. So this is 1 by 26. So what I get? Probability of Y equal to Y is 1 by 26. That means pure random. So what I get? The probability of getting the cipher text is random. Hello? 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 Devashish? Hello?
Hello.
Hello? Devashish?
হ্যাঁ
কি শুনতে পাচ্ছ না?
হ্যাঁ শুনতে পাচ্ছি
আচ্ছা
শুনতে পাচ্ছি ম্যাডাম।
কিছু বলবে? শেষ করব না আরেকটুখানি করি? বলো।
ঠিক আছে
বলো কতক্ষণ না?
হ্যাঁ
ঠিক আছে আমি জাস্ট
5-10 মিনিট। হ্যাঁ
ওকে আমি
ঠিক আছে।
দিদি সুগত বলছি, আপনি বলুন আমরা শুনছি।
ম্যাডাম
আমি খুব সিম্পল জিনিসই বলছি, ভাবছিলাম যে
না আমরা আমি অদিতি আমরা সবাই শুনছি আর আমরা খুব এনজয় করছি আর কি। টেক ইওর টাইম।
হ্যাঁ ম্যাডাম কন্টিনিউ করুন।
So shift cipher has perfect secrecy. Now probability of K is Y minus X because it is Y minus X mod 26 because Y minus X is nothing but key, and again key set is also 26 alphabets. So probability of this is a probability of Y given X, and apply Bayes theorem again, that we get that this is 1 by 26. That means it is pure random. So it is perfect secrecy. So you will be asked, the student will be asking that, madam, you told that shift cipher is broken, all type of. So that means what I have assumed here, that for every plain text, for every character to be encrypted, I'm using one character separate because I have assumed that key is also random, 1 by 26. So from here actually, that what I told that Shannon after 30 years, that when the Varnum cipher or one-time pad was proposed, after 30 years, Shannon told that only from Shannon's theory that it is actually it holds the perfect secrecy. So why it is a perfect secrecy? Because for each character to be encrypted, and again one key character, one separate key character is required for each plain text. One key is required. So that's why it is very costly. And but if we can do that thing, if we can maintain, then actually it is perfect. It holds the perfect secrecy. That's why one-time pad is theoretically secure, practically secure, but of no use, because if I have a long message, say I have 10,000 characters, and then I need 10,000 that each character, for each character I need a key character, all separate. Then only I can tell, and that is also one time I have to use. So it is of practically no use. So perfect secrecy when k equal to c, the cardinality are same. So PCKED is a crypto system where this alphabet set is same, or the cardinality is same. The crypto system provides perfect secrecy if and only if every key is used with equal probability. Remember that shift cipher, I have used this probability as 1 by 26. For every x belongs to P and y belongs to C, there is a unique key K such that EKX equal to y. So just now what I told, it means for every x, I have to use a separate key K, unique key, and then only this is it holds perfect secrecy. So this is the proof of that perfect secrecy of one-time pad that come from that Shannon. So one-time pad is the example. Now, I need 5 minutes because this is very important. Now, Shannon, so I think perfect secrecy concept actually is introduced by Shannon. Now, this is another very important thing that Shannon proposed. This is called the product ciphers. And these actually, all modern day encryption algorithms, it holds this thing. So what is product ciphers? Remember that's why I mentioned the 2-3 classical ciphers. The classical cipher is Caesar cipher, or if it is a Hill cipher, or the transposition. See, only one function, or I should tell art, on if later we can tell it is a function, because modulo is used for defining Caesar or substitution cipher. So different crypto system can be combined to create a new crypto system. So this is actually the basis for modern system that Shannon proposed, that only one crypto system, one encryption function cannot give you the perfect secrecy other than one-time pad. But what we see, the one-time pad is not practical. So given two crypto systems with the same message space, consider a probabilistic combination of the two systems with probability P, use system A, otherwise use system B. It can be, because Shannon told 2, but it can be even more than 1. Actually, modern crypto systems uses more than one function. So this is again I am telling very simple way, but you can see later all the probability theory, it will be coming. So main thing is that two crypto systems with the same message space, consider a probabilistic combination of two systems with probability P, use system A, otherwise use system B. So product crypto systems. Assume a crypto system. Quickly I'm telling that, say as if this is P, you can remember PC, because now I already assume that plain text and cipher text has the same set, same alphabet set, or same set of the message and cipher text. So K1 cross K2. See, now first Shannon proposed as if 2 keys, and like encryption and decryption is specified, and the key of the product crypto system has the form K1 cross K2 is used for one encryption. Okay, earlier only one key is used. So initially Shannon proposed as if a K1 cross K2, the 2 keys. So encryption was like that. E, the encryption function, and K1 cross K2x is EK2, EK1x. Those are, okay, later I'm telling. Again, decryption function was reverse. DK1 cross K2y is DK1, DK2y. So just quickly, if we see that decryption, if the decryption function, I can write that in this way, K1 cross K2, and it is EK1, K2. That means this is as if, see, this is the product. This is the product encryption. That means EK1X. And then over that, I'm applying another encryption, same function. Now see, Shannon proposed the same function with different key. But same function with different key will produce a different output. So this is actually, you just mark this, notice this. So EK1X, EK2X, and then this D. Similarly, I just decryption also in 2 steps, DK2, DK1. So obviously we'll be getting the X. That means this is the proof. Now, this is actually Shannon proposed what the modern crypto system. See, this is the thing that EK1, EK2, EK1, instead, the people can use E1K, E2K. Because output is different. Both the cases it is similar. Again, this is EK1. That means same encryption function with a different key. It will generate a different thing. It will again EK2, EK2. That means encryption function with different key. Instead, the same encryption function, different encryption function with same key. But it will be giving you the same thing. So the modern crypto system actually is based on this. So another way to use two-crypto system is to encrypt and decrypt messages consecutively. We call this is a product cipher. So Shannon proposed this thing, and mainly nowadays we are using the same key but different function, E1, E2. So he believes that a combination of initial transposition or permutation with alternating substitution and linear operation may do the trick. See, this is nothing but, that's why remember, transposition is nothing but permutation and substitution. So what is today's substitution permutation network? That was actually proposed by Shannon. He believes that a combination of initial transposition, permutation with the alternating substitution and may do the trick. So both DES and AES use Shannon's ideas of product system and of type substitution permutation network. So this is SPN. Okay. Now all of you know PK, and just quickly map here. All of you know private block ciphers, and so simplified model of encryption decryption, plain text encryption algorithm. Now only within encryption algorithm, say if we use the DES, we see that this is from the Stallings books I have taken. So in one round also, if we consider only one round, if we see that only one round, this is my permutation, and this is a XOR, and this is a substitution. Again, this is a permutation. So this is nothing but a product. This is a product system. Okay, and just as if now key is same key. Here key is same. So here there is no key, but this is an encryption function with the same key, and this is the product system. Okay, so this is as if my permutation function, again substitution, permutation. So this is the thing. So this is the single iteration of DES. Similarly, and so DES is broken against brute force attack. Okay, DES algorithm has no weakness, but okay, that is a different issue. We will not discuss today. But triple DES, see that this is triple DES totally based on Shannon's concept. See, EK1P, DK2. D is actually E. All of we know the encryption and decryption are same for symmetric cipher. So plain text, EK1, EK2, EK3. So what Shannon proposed for 2, now it is actually for 3. Or 2 DES, for 2 DES it is actually 2. Then triple DES, it is given by 3. The same. Just map. Now just I'm mapping. So K1, K2, K3, and these are, we know E and D are same. So it is nothing but it comes directly from Shannon's theorem. Similarly, if we think advanced encryption standard, AES, what is the current day block cipher standard? 128. And see add round key, bytes up, shift row, mix long. I'm just giving only this thing because this add round key is nothing but my XOR key. This is substitution. This is nothing but these two are nothing but permutation. This is shift row permutation. Mixed column also gives you the permutation. So together I can tell this is permutation. So this is transposition, this is substitution, this is one XOR. Again, this is a product crypto system. This is actually the Shannon's proposal. So mainly these are the, this comes from here. So there are many other things. I actually didn't touch the entropy part. I think students, if some of you are interested, you must read the thing. And these are the 10 round, etc. How key is used. Okay. Now these are attacks on. If I tell the crypto system, then obviously, and I'm telling security. So attacks, just I touch that brute force attack, and then small design flaws can lead to a complete failure of the crypto system. And linear differential, algebraic attacks, side channel attacks, already I mentioned. But whatever, mainly the attack when I'm telling, these attacks are actually how secure your crypto system is. So mainly the secrecy of the crypto system. So mainly I try to give that part. So I conclude that secure cipher design is essentially one of the difficult problems. Mainly all of us, we are trying to do that thing. Shannon's theory focuses the differences between the theoretical security and practical security. Shannon's perfect secrecy was the first approach for secrecy measure. And both DES and AES use Shannon's idea for product crypto system with additional mathematics and statistics. I give only the simple approach, and then obviously some more mathematics and these things are there. So with this I conclude. Any question? And this book, I think Stinson's book is very nice, and basic things are very nicely given in Stinson's book. So who are the beginners, they must study this thing, but manager's book is also very good. So you can also see. And I like William Stallings, actually absolutely nice book. So with only these basic things you can see, but Stinson you can see, and manager's book. If some of you want to do some research, then you must see this manager's book. And available, all are available in net. No need to buy. Okay. Thank you. Already it is night. Any quick question?
Ma'am, there is a question in the chat box.
Okay, chat box.
For large amount of data encryption purpose, why RSA algorithm is not perfect?
Oh, okay. This is very common question. Okay, mainly RSA is public key that is used for key agreement or key encryption like that, because it is very costly. And for large amount of data to be encrypted, actually the block cipher is mainly used. If you know RSA, you know that actually this is some exponentiation is coming into picture. Remember? And this exponent is actually a how many bits? 1024 bit is now it is secured. Even 512 bit is broken. So see how costly this is. So if you have a huge amount of data, then it is very difficult to, or difficult means almost not possible. Rather, if you have small data like key, then you can easily do that thing. So this is the reason. This is the reason.
Hello, Sugato here.
Hello.
This is Odit.
অনেকদিন পর তো একটু বাদে মাকাউটের
Madam,
yes yes
Madam, thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you very much for your presentation.
আমি খুব একটা সিম্পল
I want to mention 2 points here.
Yes.
First of all, thank you very much, and I'd like to mention why thanks. The reason is that the way you mapped DES and AES to SPN, I have never seen it anywhere else. I always used to think that DES, AES are okay, very special cases, and when I thought about SPN, I only saw that 16 by 16 S box, 16 by 16 block cipher of Stinson's book, and now I used to say that look, present present is a block cipher that uses exactly SPM. But DES, AES, I never thought like that.
But
But
actually,
when you map it so nicely, and so this is wonderful. Another point is that I would, of course, the fact that you started with Shannon's channel channel coding theorem, you mentioned the basic ideas. That's very important, and many people do not realize that the security and cryptography actually depends on channel coding theory.
Yes.
Because sometimes the attacker may be accessing the channel, the attacker's channel may have more error than the receiver and sender's thing, and then you have to tune the crypto systems in that way,
Yes,
make them
actually,
lightweight and all that.
1948, when the first paper proposed, that time 10 years, the first 10 years, Shannon didn't get any recognition.
Yes.
Because, but later actually it was
so important. So thank you very much, and Devash, I won't take more time.
And আপনি এনট্রপিটা actually অনেক টাইম লাগে এনট্রপি ঢুকলে তো এখন but
অনেকক্ষণ টাইম লাগে
another information theory actually that comes why we tell information theory and coding. Actually Sugato started that coding part, and that also came from the Shannon's theory.
Because now I have been seeing some of the cipher designs, I mean, like where people are, for example, for lightweight ciphers and particularly sensors and all that with IoT devices, sometimes the attacker can be kept outside a barrier. Now the question is that attacker's channel, the attacker is accessing the channel through something that has got more error than the sender receiver.
Yes.
And then how to, I mean, for lightweightness, those things might be used. I mean, like for that. So these are so important things that people kind of, when people
actually, I think it is very important. And again, see the design. DES and AES fully based on Shannon's theorem. And later actually.
That mapping I do not know very well, so I will be happy to meet sometime.
I think actually
you know the ciphers so well. So
no, when I teach say Shannon, I show that actually it is 1-to-1. It is totally same.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Didi, হ্যাঁ ওকে আমরা কি
হ্যাঁ থ্যাংক ইউ
আমরা কি 2 মিনিট কথা বলি স্টুডেন্টদের okay students, if you have any question and you can send mail. Okay, today actually it is late night. Late. Okay, Devashish, you can tell.
Thank you.
And I have given already the slides, so they can use that. But it is mainly from Douglas, that Stinson. Okay.
সুগত দা,
হ্যাঁ সুগত মেয়ে কত বড় হয়ে গেল?
এই যে আয় না, তুই কি করছিস এখানে?
ও তখন লজ্জাই করবে, সেই একটুকুনি ছিল তো সেটা।
এই যে
হ্যাঁ দেখতে পাচ্ছি,
এইবার জয়েন্ট দিয়েছে।
ওরে বাবা,
আর এইবার জয়েন্ট
ভালো রেজাল্ট,
যেই মেনে আপনার 99.96% আছে আর কি।
বাবা দারুণ করেছে।
তারপর তো আপনারা আর অ্যাডভান্সটা নিচ্ছেন না আর কি, মানে আমরা
অ্যাডভান্সটা কত 27 সেপ্টেম্বর
আর কি।
ও ঠিক হবে বলছে তো, মিটিং তো হচ্ছে।
হ্যাঁ এবার তো হবে বলছে আর কি।
খুব ভালো করে দাও, খুব ভালো করে। একদিন জানিস তো শুধু এয়ারপোর্টে, একদিন এয়ারপোর্ট একদম আমরা, তাই না?
মনে আছে,
কিন্তু ও তো সারাক্ষণ আমার সঙ্গে মানে এত ভাব হয়ে গেছিল, কিন্তু এখন তো মনে নেই কিচ্ছু।
তাই বলছিলাম যে দেখা হয়েছিল, তারপর আপনার সঙ্গে ওই মার্কেটিংও করেছিল গিয়ে এয়ারপোর্টে।
তখন একদম ছোট তো, আর তারপরে বাবা যাবে না, কি মন খারাপ প্রথমে।
হ্যাঁ ওই মন খারাপ ছিল।
তো অদিতি দি বলতে চিনতে পারবেন আমাকে? হ্যাঁ অদিতি দি বলতে চিনতে পারবেন না, আমি হচ্ছে 96 এ জয়েন করেছিলাম এমএসসি তে খড়গপুরে।
আচ্ছা।
আমি তারপর হচ্ছে কি ওখান থেকে হচ্ছে কি 96 থেকে 98, তারপর আবার পিএইচডি এমটেক করেছি ওখান থেকে।
আচ্ছা।
তারপর হচ্ছে কি পরে পিএইচডি করেছি ওখান থেকে।
আচ্ছা।
মানে তুমি তখন ছিলে, তুমি তখন না, তখন তুমি ছিলে। হ্যাঁ
দেবাশিস আমাদের ডিরেক্ট ছাত্র।
ম্যাডামের হচ্ছে ছাত্র, ম্যাডামের পড়িয়েছেন আমাদেরকে।
আচ্ছা।
দেবাশিস এটা অর্গানাইজ করে ভালো করেছে, মানে আমরা দেখাশোনা করছি। এবং
আরে আমি তো প্রথমেই না করে যাচ্ছি, কারণ সে এখন তো হেডশিপ প্রচন্ড এমনি না কাল অব্দি বলে যাচ্ছি, দেবাশিস তুমি সুগতকে দিয়ে শেষ করে দাও, আমাকে আর ডেকো না।
ম্যাডাম ব্যস্ত আছেন এখন বলছি। হ্যাঁ
না আমরা দুজনেই একটু বেসিক বলেছি, আমি আর সুগত, মানে দুজনেই, কারণ
আমার খুব ভালো লাগলো আর কি।
এটা অ্যাকচুয়ালি উল্টো দিকে গেছে।
ওটাও ও ভীষণ টাইম মেমোরি ট্রেড অফ, মানে সত্যি এটা কি দরকারি, মানে যে লোকজন
দেখুন আমার যেটা বক্তব্য, আমি যেটা স্টুডেন্টদের বোঝাই, যে সবাই বলে যে এক্সহস্টিভ সার্চটা অ্যাটাক নয়, কিন্তু মার্টিন হেলম্যান তো এক্সহস্টিভ সার্চটা ইউজ করেই করলো।
সবে
প্রত্যেকটা অ্যাটাকই এক্সহস্টিভ সার্চ।
ডিএস